Welcome to the Goodyear City Council meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address City Council on both non-agenda and agenda items. You must fill out a speaker request card in order to address the City Council. The agendas and speaker request cards are located in the back of the council chambers. Please drop your completed card in the tray next to the blank speaker cards. If the meeting has already begun, please hand it to the city employee at the back of the room. You may check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to let council know your opinion without having to speak. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact a staff member if you need any assistance. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The city clerk will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and tell us your name for the record. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes. The timer is on the screens visible from the podium. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear City Council meetings stream live on Facebook, YouTube, X, and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
I'd like to call the regular meeting to order for July 8th, 2024. Everybody please mark present. See that we're all here. Thank you. Please join Vice Mayor Cano in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, thank you for bringing us through a complete budget cycle into a new fiscal year. We are thankful for the revenues and residents that have come into the city, as well as many additions to our workforce. We pray for your provision for the 24-25 fiscal year, that our goals and projects will be funded as planned. We are so grateful for the many people who are choosing to live here and for the businesses that continue to locate in our city. We pray for their success, for as they prosper, the city prospers as well. We ask you to be with us as we go through each agenda item tonight. Give us wisdom and grace to proceed for the betterment of our community. We pray for those who serve us so unselfishly, our local military community, our police and fire personnel. Please keep your hand of protection over them, especially as they are out in this heat. We thank you for your goodness and mercy. Amen.
Thank you. Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the City Council on any non-agenda items within the jurisdiction of the City of Goodyear. Do we have any cards?
No, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. City Clerk, please read the consent agenda items 1 through 15 by title only.
Number 1, approval of minutes. Number 2, conditionally approve the final plat of Liberty Well Site 19B, subject to stipulations. Number 3, approve the final plat of La Jolla Vista Phase 1, subject to stipulations. Number 4, approve the replat of Palm Valley Pavilions Lot 6 and a portion of Lot 7 of Palm Valley Pavilions, subject to stipulations. Number 5, approve a 90-day extension of the final plat for La Privada Parcels 3 and 7, Phase 1. Number 6, conditionally approve the map of dedication for La Jolla Vista, subject to stipulations. Number 7, authorize the initiation of the Litchfield Road annexation south of Lower Buckeye Road. Number 8, approve the memorandum of understanding with the Federal Bureau of Investigation Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force and the cost reimbursement agreement. Number 9, authorize 2 intergovernmental agreements with Agua Fria Union High School District, number 216 for school resource officer services at Desert Edge and Millennium High Schools. Number 10, approve the partial termination and release of sidewalk easement no longer needed. Number 11, adopt resolution number 2024-2419, finding that acquisition of real property interest needed for the completion of improvements to the west half of Saraville Avenue between Yuma Road and Elwood Street in the intersection at Lower Buckeye Road and Saraville Avenue is a matter of public necessity, authorizing and directing city staff to acquire such interest by dedication, donation, purchase, or the exercise of the power of eminent domain, providing authorization to city manager and providing an effective date. Number 12, authorize the city manager to execute the development agreement with Goodyear Leased Housing Associates 2 Limited Partnership for multifamily rental development under the American Rescue Plan Act. Number 3, authorize a contract for the expenditure of funds for design and pre-construction services on the approved CIP project number 61014, Goodyear WRF expansion. Number 14, authorize contract for the expenditure of construction funds for CIP project number 60103, Corget WRF clarifier rehabilitation and transfer of funds in the amount of $651,000 to CIP project number 61016, Central Avenue Sewer Line and Wells Fargo Lift Station. And number 15, adopt resolution number 2024-2410 approving the development agreement water service with Olam Phoenix Arizona LLC, providing direction and authorization and an effective date.
Thank you. Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item? Remove or question?
I have just a couple of comments on number 12 and number 15.
Okay, hold on one second. Anybody else? Okay, on 12, Jenna?
She doesn't need to come up, it's just a comment I want to.
Oh, just a comment?
These are just two comments that
Okay.
because these are on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Item 12 is the pass-through agreement for the, with the partnership with the county of the American Rescue Plan Act funding for affordable housing in Goodyear. This is, we haven't gotten much press on this. We've dealt with this 6 or 7 months ago. I think if we have the opportunity to kind of call it out, this is a great step for us to move forward into the affordable housing arena in partnership both with the federal government and with the county in making additional residential units available in our community. And I just wanted to kind of point that out. This just slips under the radar as a pass-through grant, and I wanted to call it out. So I appreciate that. Item 15. Same thing. This is a great time for us to look at exploring ways of providing water services in areas that otherwise we don't have it. And I'm appreciative that the staff has agreed and is supportive of moving this item forward in partnership with EPCOR to provide water services to an area that otherwise would not come into the city and be able to provide us with additional services for both our commercial and residential residents. So I just wanted to say thank you to the staff for that.
Anything else? With that, I see a motion and a second up on the board. Any further? Go ahead and open it up. Passes 7-0. Thank you. Now, there's 2 public hearings on the agenda tonight. First public hearing items to consider a use permit for a convenience use QuikTrip, and I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Christian, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christian Williams, Planning Manager here with the City of Goodyear. And before you tonight is a use permit request for a convenience store and gas station. The applicant is QuikTrip, and it will be located in the Triangle, which is at Loop 303 and Indian School Road. So the subject property is located at the southeast corner of 166th Avenue and West Indian School Road. Property is shown right here in the yellow square on the map. The 2035 general plan designates the property as business and commerce land use category. And the property in previous general plans has had designations from commercial as well as industrial going back to 1998. The property is zoned PAD, and that has an underlying zoning on this property of C2, equivalent to our general commercial. And the property is part of the PB 303 PAD, which was originally zoned and approved back in 2008. Property is within the Luke Air Force Base 65 DNL, which does restrict some of the uses allowed on it. I will make note that it is not within the APZ boundary, though. And the City Council was scheduled to hear a use permit request for a convenience store with a gas station and some trucking facilities back in June of 2023. But that use permit was brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission with no truck facilities, was recommended at that time, but the applicant chose to withdraw that application, so it never did have a public hearing with the City Council. The proposed QuikTrip site is approximately 1.8 acres, and the project is proposed to go in the commercial center that is called the Triangle at PV 303. The master site plan for the center delineates the plans for circulation and services, and that was approved by staff back in February 2023. I will note, though, no uses on that site plan that require a use permit were approved through that process. The Triangle is located northwest of the Pebble Creek pickleball facilities and the Pebble Creek RV storage, and the center has an approved site plan for a Filiberto's drive-through restaurant and a few other vacant commercial pads. The use permit for that Filiberto's was approved by council back in April of 2021, and it has an active extension of the use permit and site plan today. So this is the QuikTrip landscape plan and site plan. The applicant is proposing a 53,000 square foot convenience store with a 7,200 square foot fueling canopy that will have 8 fueling islands, which can serve up to 16 vehicles at a time. Customers would have right in, right out access directly into the property off of Indian School Road, and they would have full access at the existing signal. It says UPS Way and 166th Avenue. There are no other signals planned between the Loop 303 and this property. These are the proposed building elevations, which include the colors and materials that are consistent with those that have been approved with the master site plan within the Triangle. And the approximate building height is 20 feet, which is less than the 56-foot height allowed in C2. This is the rendering of the proposed fueling canopies. They are also in compliance with the architecture, colors, and materials found in the center. And the canopy's maximum height is approximately 22 feet. A citizen review and public hearing process was followed. In addition to the required citizen review meeting, the applicant held an additional meeting before that in the Pebble Creek community. That meeting occurred on May 22nd, and approximately 100 residents were in attendance at the Pebble Creek Tuscany Falls Ballroom. On May 29th, a formal citizen review meeting was held for the use permit, and approximately 26 residents were in attendance here at the Canyon Trails rooms of City Hall. To date, staff has received approximately 38 emails from residents. 11 emails were in support of the use permit, 27 were in opposition. Some of those emails were received after this presentation was crafted, so you'll see that the numbers do not match because that is the latest that we have. The applicant also submitted 916 signatures in support of the project from Goodyear residents. Those have been provided to council. Residents in their opposition were concerned about lighting, noise, traffic, crime, environmental and health concerns, and concerns about the 24-hour operations of this business. There were also concerns that this business could potentially expand into a truck stop and truck facilities. The applicant does not propose those facilities. Residents also objected. They requested a sound wall be constructed on the adjacent Pebble Creek property, which is approximately 400 feet away. At these meetings, the applicant indicated that they do not plan to expand to provide trucking operations. They do propose a 24-hour operation business model. And to address the neighborhood concerns, they did conduct a noise study about what the impacts would be if a wall were to be reconstructed on the Pebble Creek property. That study determined that the closest residence would be under 45 dB or lower to date. But if a wall were constructed, it would actually cause some of the sound to bounce off of that wall to the west, potentially causing additional noise for other residents. Staff believes that the QuikTrip is compatible with the uses permitted and the projects approved in the surrounding area. And as stated previously, the property is designated business and commerce in our 2035 general plan, and it does have a C2 underlying zoning, which would provide for this type of use with the use permit. The use is permitted in C2 by right, just so you have a few of them. That would include auto repair shops, bus terminals, funeral homes, and parking lots, amongst other uses. These uses do not have inherently limits of operations, hours of operations, and some may be more intense. The traffic study submitted by the applicant also found that the road level of Indian School Road, which is 3 lanes in each direction from Loop 303, had additional capacity and the capacity to allow for the development of this commercial site as well as the QuikTrip. And the lighting for this site will meet the city's standards for Lighting Zone 2, which do account for spillage. I do want to show you this slide here. This again is the proposed QuikTrip in yellow, the approved Filiberto's in blue. That QuikTrip is approximately 700 feet from the nearest residential dwelling unit, and the pickleball courts are approximately 240 feet from that QuikTrip. And given the proposed location near Loop 303, which is slightly off your map by about a couple hundred feet, the use permit for this proposed business would follow the same hours of operations as the approved Filiberto's, which is further from Pebble Creek. And for reference, that Filiberto's is approximately 650 feet from the nearest residential unit in Pebble Creek. On June 26th, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard this use permit, and at that meeting, 15 speaker cards were submitted in opposition. Residents again expressed concerns with the potential for the increase of traffic, crime, noise, air pollution, and potential negative impacts on the matters of their public health. And at the conclusion of that hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-1 to forward a recommendation of approval to this body. The use permit application does meet our use permit and convenience use evaluation criteria as found in the zoning ordinance and in the staff report. And staff recommends, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, that this use permit be approved subject to the stipulations found in the staff report. I will highlight 2 of them. It does prohibit truck stops and travel center facilities and those types of facilities, and it prohibits semi-truck on-site vehicle parking and overnight parking accommodations. That concludes my presentation. The applicant is here and does also have a presentation, but I'm happy to answer any use permit criteria questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. The applicant? Do you want to speak at this time, or it's your call?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
For your record, my name is Brian Greathouse with the law firm Birch & Cracchiolo, here representing QuikTrip. First, want to thank Christian. He always does a great presentation, and he hit on a lot of the points that I plan to touch upon. This QuikTrip development is vastly different than what was proposed on the site about a year and a half ago. It's a different user. It's a different type of development. QuikTrip is best in class. They're clean in and out. They really need no introduction. But if you didn't know, they're an experienced, high-quality user. They've been in business for more than 56 years. They have 1,080 stores nationwide, all of which are 24/7 stores. They have best practices for safety, lighting, design, operations, visibility. They have 50 security cameras on site. Not only are those monitored on site, but there's a central corporate area where those are always monitored as well, and the employees have a little button on their belt if they have an emergency so that people can respond quickly. They have best practices for environmental design, equipment, cleanup procedures, air pollution, ventilation. They're best in class. And we know of at least 7 reasons why QT should be a 24/7 store at this site. As Christian presented, this is not a rezoning case. We're requesting a use permit with specific criteria that has been met in this case. There's a 700 feet of separation between the site and the nearest residential home, as Christian presented. From where the fuel pumps are located, it's more than 850 feet, so we're talking about 3 football fields away from the nearest single-family home. We believe this is an appropriate and needed use along the 303. If you drive up and down the 303, you won't see a whole lot of gas stations. It's hard to find a gas station right now along the 303, and this makes a lot of logical sense where it's located. It's across the street from a fairly heavily traveled UPS hub facility with hundreds of trucks going in and out of there. And it's going to be surrounded by future commercial uses that are all zoned C2, but they're just vacant today. This site does not abut any residential areas. It doesn't abut the RV storage facility. It does not abut the pickleball court. There's separation and buffers between all of those uses. This is a rendering that is basically a QT. This design's not final, but this would be looking from Indian School Road. Christian just touched upon a lot of these issues, but we read the meeting minutes from the prior Circle K case. We've had 2 neighborhood meetings, and we had planning commission meetings. We know what the issues are. They're listed here on the screen. The truck stop's been resolved with stipulations. The traffic study shows that there's minimal new trips that will be generated on Indian School Road, and there's a vast amount of capacity on that road to serve the site. The proximity to residential is nearly 3 football fields, and that's a lot closer. That's a lot further away than many QT stores and other convenience stores are located near residential around the whole valley. We've produced a noise study. We're on the noisy side of the 65 LDN. The 65 LDN noisy side does not allow residential uses. With respect to lighting, we produced a photometric study. With respect to safety, we have best-in-class policies and procedures. And then with respect to environmental, and we can go into any of these issues in more depth. We have a lot of slides, but we just bullet pointed them here. With respect to 24 hours operation, we can think of at least 7 reasons why this store should be 24/7. It's adjacent to existing and future C2 uses. The Filiberto is going to be 24/7. A lot of the other uses that could go there will be 24/7 as well. QT operates these stores, 1,080 stores nationwide, all of which are 24/7. And being open 24/7 allows 24/7 surveillance on the site. It allows them to operate their Safe Place program, which is a place where at-risk youth and others can go at all hours of the day and night to get help if they need it. People have varying shifts, whether they're working at any of the distribution facilities along the 303. Folks are traveling at all odd hours of the night. There's various medical situations you get into, or maybe you have a loved one in the hospital. You need to go find a 24/7 store. QT is always open. And finally, students, if they're studying late at a library and they're driving home, it'd be nice to have a well-lit, safely run QT store so kids can go there and get what they need. It's a place for first responders to go throughout the night. They can park in the parking lot. They can come in. If it's a motorcycle officer, QT has a program where they can come in and walk in their freezer and cool off. If it's 100 degrees at night, probably it's going to be 100 degrees tonight. And it offers a consistency of product. Every time you go and look up a QT on your phone, you know it's going to be open. A lot of neighborhood outreach was completed. We sent out notices. We've held a voluntary neighborhood meeting. We had an official neighborhood meeting. There was ongoing neighborhood outreach. And then we obtained, it says 680 letters of support, but we in fact have a whole stack of 916 letters from Goodyear residents supporting this development. This is an example of the support letter. But why QT? Like I said, they're a high-end, best-in-class. They're safe, clean, well-monitored. They have awards for excellence of friendly service and product. They're an excellent corporate citizen with their QT Charities program for local communities. And they're more than just a place to get fuel. They have a full kitchen with freshly made food and ice cream, iced teas, smoothies, etc. This store will generate approximately 24 jobs, and it'll provide significant sales tax revenue and other tax revenues to the city and the state. And it's less new trips than many other commercial developments that could be developed on this site that are permitted under C2. Lastly, I'd like to just address many of the form opposition letters that were submitted. Almost all, most if not all, referred to 2 different convenience store robbery reports. One was says U.S. Department of Justice. The other one's just a summary of, it's a ASU study, it's a summary of the Department of Justice report. This appears to be written by two authors who were in a criminal justice program in about 2006 in a college in Albany. And on page 3, it says these are not the opinions of the Department of Justice. But irregardless of who wrote it, QT is the poster child for following these procedures recommended guidelines for how to operate a store. With that, that's the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and grab a seat? I'm sure there will be a few, okay? All right, see, with that, do you have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor. Victor Leo?
Victor, just before you start, all you need is your name. You don't even have to give your address. That's that you're a Goodyear resident. You'll be seeing some numbers up there. You got the 3 minutes, so go ahead.
My name is Vic Leo. I'm a Goodyear resident. The following remarks are directed at the evaluation criteria for the use permits under Section 1/2-3. There are no objections to the convenience store under Section 4-2-2, other than the City Council should not permit the sale of wine and beer because it'll be detrimental to the surrounding area. I have 3 objections to the proposed use permit for the gas station portion. 1, it's too close to a large recreational facility. 2, it significantly understates traffic congestion. And 3, it creates a toxic mix of air pollution. Number 1, the use permit is material detrimental to a significant number of senior citizens recreating in a vicinity in an adjacent to a proposed QT property. QT states that the proposed property is approximately 240 feet from the pickleball courts. This is clearly insufficient, and request for a use permit should be rejected alone on that basis. Why? It's generally understood that gasoline and diesel stations should be at least 500 to 1,000 feet from any school, recreational facility, or public areas that have similar characteristics. People congregating, lots of people congregating. It's generally understood that a Goodyear bond, in my understanding, is that $17 million is going to be allocated for parks and recreation facilities in Goodyear. Surely, no fueling station will be within 500 feet of these facilities. Number 2, the proposed use permit is not compatible with the surrounding area because it will produce excessive traffic congestion. The analysis provided by QT is flawed. It significantly underestimates the known future volume of traffic at the intersection of 303 Indian School Road and 166. Number 3, air pollution is already a significant problem at the proposed location. The jet fuel exhaust from Luke Air Force Base operations is a factor. Constantly expanding traffic from Route 303 at Indian School Road is a factor. Numerous air quality alerts all the time from Maricopa County is a factor. It's reasonable to conclude that 8 fueling pumps, gasoline and diesel, will produce an unhealthy pollution mix that's detrimental to golfers, pickleball players, and other recreational participants. It's the mix that's the problem. In conclusion, QT proposal for a gas station does not meet the evaluation criteria under Section 1-3-2. My recommendation is to identify and update zoning restrictions to protect public welfare as it relates to schools, recreational areas, and other similar public gathering places in the vicinity of gas and fueling stations. Today's vote is not providing a QT proposal for a gas station. What is it really? It's a vote about providing senior citizens with a recreational facility that is both healthy and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Another card?
I'm
Jackie
prepared
Brandt.
I have these remarks in writing, and I'm prepared to leave them with
That's fine.
the Secretary.
Jackie Brandt?
Okay.
Who you got?
We'll get
Jackie?
Jackie.
And if there's any of you that are doing the same thing where you can speak for 4 or 5 individuals, that would be great, but that's your call. Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, we'll see. My name is Jackie Brandt, and I live in the villas of Unit 43B in Pebble Creek, which is the closest area of current residences to the triangle at PV 303. I'm not anti-development, I'm pro-planned development and growth. I chose Goodyear as my place to retire in part because of its designation as an all-American city. I knew that that meant good schools, low crime, beautiful parks, and planned development. Pebble Creek's an active adult community representing 10% of the Goodyear population, with over 11,000 residents and still growing. We exercise outside our homes all the time and love the outdoor living areas in our homes. A petition was sent to the City Council last year with over 1,000 signatures from Pebble Creek residents opposing the Circle K convenience store, showing how much we care about what type of development will be built next to our community. Many businesses would be acceptable uses and welcomed by our residents, but not businesses that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, have fueling stations or drive-throughs with idling cars that create air, light, and noise pollution along with increased crime and traffic. Now you are considering a use permit for QuikTrip with the exact same use in the same location that's within 250 feet of Pebble Creek. It is all located, as they said, in the Air Force Base 65 DNL zone, which is also referred to as an accident potential zone. Goodyear zoning ordinance 132 permits. The City Council requires that the proposed development will not be material detrimental to persons residing or working in the vicinity adjacent to the property, to the neighborhood, or to the public welfare, and 2, that the proposed use is reasonably compatible with uses permitted in the surrounding area. The applicant bears the burden of demonstrating that the foregoing requirements have been met. What currently surrounds the triangle is Pebble Creek and a church. This use, to me, does not meet those requirements. There are currently 6 stores with gas pumps within a 3-mile radius of Pebble Creek. 2 of them are QTs, plenty to service this neighborhood. We as a community offer generous support to the City of Goodyear through donations and volunteer hours, and do not want businesses built on the triangle that will harm our quality of life, our health, our security, and the quiet enjoyment of our homes in this community and city that we love. I now ask you as our representatives to deny the requested use permit by QT to build yet another convenience store with gas pumps in this location. It is not compatible use with Pebble Creek and its residents. Thank you for listening to my concerns, and let's keep Goodyear an all-American city.
Thank you. Another?
Vic Knight.
Vic Knight, Pebble Creek resident. I'm asking you to deny the permit for QuikTrip. I personally have no problem with QT stores, but this is the wrong location for a 24/7 operation. We trust our city council to make decisions that consider health, safety, and welfare of our community and to do nothing that will harm us. Just a few years ago, we had a man who had been chased by the police jump over our wall and run through our backyards. We also had a gate guard at night brutally attacked by an outsider. We do not need to bring this element closer to our retirement community. This is an issue of safety versus convenience. Also, to remind people here that Pebble Creek is about 2,300 acres. We'll have approximately 6,400 homes. Prices start over $500,000 to over $1 million. This is a homeowners community where we made a large investment and a large investment in Goodyear. Additionally, we've had some discussions with QT. They said they were neighbor-friendly, going to work with us, never did. QT says they have a business model, they can't deviate from that. That's not true. QT was started in 1958. The business model changed numerous times. In 1971, the first time gasoline was ordered offered at the convenience store. 2013 introduced QT kitchens, which are full service. In 2016, QT opened a downtown Atlanta store without gas pumps. May 3rd, 2023, QT closed that Atlanta store due to high crime and theft. Employees were scared, customers were scared, and that's the reason they gave for closing. Near the headquarters in Tulsa, QT has a convenience store that is only open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., no gas. They can and do changes in their business model as needed, as all successful companies do. If this is such a great location for them, QT certainly can agree to stipulations like closing from midnight to 5 a.m. The exact hours that McDonald's has down the street will be opening soon. Or they can stop all deliveries from midnight to 5 a.m. If QT cannot accept the reasonable stipulations, then this might not be the right location for them. We ask City Council to consider our health, safety, and welfare and livability of our neighborhood. The permit is not compatible with our residential community. I remind the city we had 1,100 signatures against Circle K last year, and many of those people are still against this, far more than what they have here. I don't even know where they got that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joan Knight.
My name is Joan Knight. I'm a Goodyear resident. This permit should be denied. It's materially detrimental to residents in the adjacent property, that is Pebble Creek, a senior community. The 24/7 operation is not compatible with the area. We understand Triangle is Zone C2, but not every business is open 24/7. Pebble Creek rolls up the sidewalk at 9 p.m. QT will produce disruptive noise detrimental to the health of the nearby senior citizens. The parcel is only 240 feet from our sports complex. Our HOA limited the park hours so residents are not disturbed. It's only open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Jets from Luke don't fly late at night or before 7 a.m. There are gas stations in Phoenix that are not open 24/7. Last year, when Circle K proposed the same operation, it admitted that it has some Arizona stores that are closed at night. QT already has 2 other stores within a few miles that are open 24/7 and can offer a safe space. At the very least, you should be consistent with stipulations you recently placed on other businesses next to homes. You restricted the hours for several McDonald's, one just down at Indian School in Saraville, closed from midnight to 5 a.m. Special odor scrubbers were required. Cooking odor was never even addressed here. Even without a drive-through, QT will still have the same issues of constant traffic, voices, horns, doors, and delivery trucks. QT's sound studies rejected the idea of building a sound wall behind the store, but sound will carry at night. Some semi-trucks have air brakes that are over 100 decibels, and the trucks deliver behind the store. This is detrimental to the health of the seniors living only 700 feet away. Noise-induced sleep disturbance contributes to high blood pressure and heart disease, especially in the elderly. Goodyear should be consistent on all these issues when reviewing permits. Either deny the permit or restrict the operating hours. Last, 24/7 operation is an invitation for crime. Pebble Creek is only separated from the triangle by a 6-foot wall, which can easily be climbed. QT has security cameras, but these are only helpful after something happens. QT offered no solution to reduce crime, noise, odors, will not limit the hours, and will not bend. So I ask you to deny this permit, or at least add stipulations for health and safety that are consistent with past city action, limiting the hours from midnight to 5 a.m., including deliveries. Please consider other solutions for safety reasons, such as adding a guard at night. Granting this permit will only make our neighborhood less safe, less healthy, and less livable. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Spector.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name's Jeff Spector. I live here in Goodyear within the Pebble Creek community, and which is near, as you know, the proposed QT facility. I sent you all a letter recently demonstrating that noise and criminal activity from the 24-hour QT facility will have a detrimental impact on Pebble Creek residents. It showed with FBI statistics that gas stations and convenience stores in particular are vulnerable to violent crime. Late night and early morning operations especially create a less safe and a less livable environment for Pebble Creek residents. I'm here to beg you to mitigate the detrimental impacts related to noise and criminal activity. Specifically, I ask that you condition the facility to close from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. and maintain on-site security guards from sunset to sunrise. And I think, given the fact that there's not very much activity at a gas station convenience store in the wee hours of the morning, they wouldn't be giving up very much profit by accommodating the residents here and creating a more safe and livable environment for us. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next.
I have a card for Sandra Clinton, but she has, I wish to speak only if necessary.
Sandra?
My name is Sandra Clinton. I am a resident of Goodyear. I retired here 9 years ago. I dedicated my entire career to the criminal justice system in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I started out that career as an assistant district attorney. One of the things that I did in that time frame is I worked in the Violent Crimes Division for 2.5 years. And one of our duties as violent crime attorneys is we would have to go out on calls for any kind of homicides or rapes that occurred at any time during your scheduled week on, week off. You know, we were on week on pretty much every 10 weeks. And during the 2.5 years I was there, I went out 3 times to 3 different convenience stores for homicides. Nothing good happens after midnight. I think it's a reasonable stipulation to be able to close it down between midnight and 5, 6 a.m. That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it. We do have 9 that are opposed that do not wish to speak.
Okay, thank you. 9 that are opposed that do not wish to speak? Did you say? Okay. All right, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. To get the discussion started, will the city council please enter the motion a second to approve the use permit for a convenience use QuikTrip convenience store with a gas station on parcel 4, the final plaque of PV 303 East 2, Phase 1, recorded on February 16, 2018, in the official records of Maricopa County at Book 31370 of map, page 10. Instrument 201801227777, subject to stipulations. And I see a motion and a second. With that, open for discussion. Who wants to start it off? Wally?
Oh, sure. Why not? I have a question for QT. It's not environmental. Okay. So the story I'm going to tell you is, the story I'm going to share is, to me, indicative of your company. I was at the beauty shop 2 weeks ago, and a young man comes in, sits beside me, and his beautician said, "What in the world did you do to your hair?" He said, "I had an appointment with QT to interview for a job, and the hair cannot touch my shoulders, and it cannot touch my ears, so I cut it off myself." And I said, "Well, you didn't do too bad of a job. It looks okay." I said, "Did you get the job?" And he said, "Yes, but now he's in to have someone redo it." I know your employees are vetted. I know they wear uniforms. I know that they are very well trained. I use QT all the time, but I don't go to the same QT because I never know when I'm going to run out of gas because I'm all over everywhere. And I do know that the reason why I like QT is because I know where the bathrooms are, and I know there's cameras inside and there's cameras outside, and I feel protected there as a single woman. And it's my understanding that most deliveries do not occur at night. Am I correct in that assumption?
That is correct. For the record, my name is Daniel Chambers, and I work for QuikTrip. You are correct. Most of the deliveries do happen during the day. However, there is potential that they do come at night, so I want to be clear on that, but most of them do come during the day.
Yes, I had spoken to a couple of the trucking companies locally, and they said they don't want their drivers out at night to deliver to, not necessarily QuikTrip, but to convenience stores, because they want it all during the day. And I wanted that clarified, so you don't normally have deliveries all day and all night. Are there specific days that this occurs, or is there one that's every day for like the donuts and the fresh foods?
Yeah, there is some from the kitchens that is generally a daily delivery. We have about 22 deliveries per week, on average 15 to 22. 22 would be on a busier store.
Okay. And now my next question is, don't y'all have your own security on site?
We do have security officers. They're not in every store. A store like Goodyear, that would not be needed based on just, we looked a lot at the crime statistics, and if you go to the other stores that we have in Goodyear, Goodyear has a really good statistically reputation. It's very, very low crime here in Goodyear. It's a very safe place.
We do have a very good police department.
Yes.
They're Johnny on
it's
the
excellent.
spot.
Yeah, it's like an average of 4-minute response time is what you guys have on your website. It's very incredible. They do a very good job.
Okay. Have you had any homicides at your QTs in the Goodyear area or Avondale area?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I've only lived here almost 25 years, and I haven't heard of any myself personally, but our crime stats are really very low for the city of Goodyear. The next question I wanted to ask, you have a resident, I'm going to say resident, but that's not the right word to use. You have a manager on site every single day.
We do.
And with that, how many employees do you normally have? Are they in shifts, of course?
Yeah, it's going to vary a little bit, but typically you don't have less than 2 employees would be the minimum number of employees you would have on site.
Okay.
And that would go up to 6 to 8, depending on how busy the store was.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm going to be all over the place, and I apologize to the staff for that, but that's the way it is. Christian, I think, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I believe you misspoke during your presentation. I think you said this was a 53,000 square foot store. I think you meant 5,300. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Just wanted to, not that I'm keeping track of you, but I just wanted to make sure that nobody was under the impression we were building a gigantic QT.
That's a Buc-ee's.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, that's a Buc-ee's, exactly. So the conversation we've had, or several of the comments tonight have been about the McDonald's. And the McDonald's, if I was trying to measure, I think the McDonald's was less than
250 feet.
Say that again?
250 feet from the nearest residential.
From the nearest residential, which this is 850 feet from the nearest residential?
700 from the property line to the nearest residential.
Okay. So we're, obviously this is significantly farther away than the McDonald's. So to try to draw the parallel between McDonald's and the QT, I don't think is a fair comparison. Now, I also, I think challenge the amount of food being cooked or produced there. QT versus McDonald's, I'm sure you're cooking less. You can just nod yes or no, yeah. So, and I think I also want to point out for the residents that McDonald's offered voluntarily to put those scrubbers in. That was not, and we just put that as part of the stipulation. That was not a requirement that came from the city. It was from them to us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so when we're talking about the comparisons, I'm trying to make sure we're apples to apples and not apples and pears. So to the attorney, we've had this discussion, this question before about materially detrimental. Can you restate what that doesn't mean, or, because there's really not a definition to it?
I think what we discussed in a previous case was it's an undefined term in our code, and our survey of many other zoning codes, it's an undefined term. Typically, is to give some discretion to the councils considering the case. So you apply just the common usage definitions. So material would be substantial or considerable, and detrimental is a harm. So it's the council view and council consideration of those common usage terms in applying the zoning code.
And those in litigation are then decided by a jury or a judge, depending on how the case is heard. So what may be materially detrimental to one is not necessarily materially detrimental to another.
Correct.
Generically.
You need to generally apply the facts of the case to bear out that equation.
So I think that, and I believe I stated this the last time we talked about materially detrimental, is we, while that remains in the code, it still does not help us make a decision as a council. In regard to the crime statistic, and I appreciate calling out our police department for the excellent work that they've done and the crime rate that we have in the city. If you look at the number of homicides we've had in our community, the majority of them have occurred in our retirement communities. Both Pebble Creek and Cantamia is where most of our homicides occur. So if we apply that logic that we need to shut them down, then I guess we have a couple of very large communities that we need to close, because that's where all of our homicides are occurring. We had one this past weekend. So again, I think we've got to be careful about the comparison. When we look at the crime that is occurring at generally our convenience stores, it is very low, I think, comparative to the valley. And that is through the work of our police department, and quite honestly, the faith that the residents have placed in us by giving us the, I'm going to say, the budget authority to continue to fund them appropriately and continue to staff up the police department to make sure that theoretically the criminals know that this isn't a place to come and do your work. I look at this particular side, actually that entire area, which is outside of the wall, so the church, the triangle, and the square parcel outside of that, all of which is C2. I think from the very beginning of time, I know when I was on staff, that was always viewed as a commercial, I'm going to say, fast service, quick service area. I don't think it was ever envisioned to be anything but that. From day one. I think Robeson may have had the opportunity to buy it, chose not to, and left it, took it out and let the commercial go through there. That has been owned by, I think, the same general owner. They've changed their name, but it's been that way from the very beginning, has it not, Christian? I think.
I don't recall the ownership changes.
Okay. I'm hesitant to say no to something that has been the vision for a long time. This, in my mind, is 100 times better than what Circle K had proposed, because they were literally proposing a truck stop. I realize it didn't have a lounge and it didn't have a restaurant, but it was a truck stop, and there was no question in my mind about that. I'm glad that they pulled back their application and we didn't have to argue about, the definition of materially detrimental. In this case, QT has been they have been a good corporate partner in our community. They provide great services. Living off of Indian School on the other side of the wall of Pebble Creek, a gas station in this area would be nice. It's not always convenient to have to travel down by I-10 for fuel services. And if the only way to get fuel is to head east. Not a lot of great options. So I think we have to kind of keep in mind everything that this project, as we do all of them, are about the entire community and not the community of Pebble Creek or Palm Valley or the next, fill the next blank in. So I just want to make sure we have the facts straight when we talk about building size, we talk about material detrimental, we talk about McDonald's, we talk about crime, that we are really looking at the right components. Thank you.
Councilmember Loretano?
Thank you very much, Christian. Just stay up there. I got a question. Can you put up the slide that shows where the Filiberto's is and where this parcel, the QT, will be?
Yes.
Is proposed. It had the blue and the yellow. Okay.
There you go.
So the proposed QuikTrip is, when we're talking, that's the property line, that's not the building line. That's going to be 700 feet to that nearest house, correct?
That is correct.
And the Filiberto's, I think this kind of got passed over a little bit. That's already been approved, right?
That is correct.
And that does have a drive-through?
Yes.
And that does have 24/7?
They may operate 24 hours a day.
Okay, so we already have a 24/7 establishment on this parcel?
It's not constructed, but it is approved.
Yeah, oh, sorry, but it's approved, so there's
Yes.
already one here. How about this other land in between? Because obviously this isn't just going to be empty space. It's an odd triangle left, two triangles. Has anyone been approved for those two yet?
No, it has not, but it is C2 uses. Any of these uses plus many more are approved by right, and there would be no hours of operation restrictions.
Okay, so I could open up that one way.
Go back to slide.
I could open up any of these in that area, from a bank to automotive repair, and there would be no hours of operation or use permit required for me to do that.
Permitted by right.
Okay. That helps, and then now we go back to the blue and the yellow, so I'm pretty visual here. This section between the RVs at Pebble Creek, and there's a whole bunch of, what's in there now? Do we? Still RVs. Down lower, maybe keep going there, right up here.
That's now the constructed Pebble Creek pickleball courts.
Okay, now just up a little bit further, that, and directly between the houses and the RVs. What's in there?
I don't recall what's actually there. It's within the gates of Pebble Creek. I don't believe it's developed. Is it?
No, but what is there? Is it dirt or?
I believe it's still dirt.
So that's still just dirt there? Okay. Okay, just trying to visualize. Okay, thank you, Kristen. I guess when I heard what Bill said a lot of, you brought a lot of the points I was kind of looking at. The distance, we have a significant distance. We already have 24/7 here. And we have something that is basically stipulated, they agreed to the stipulations not to be a truck stop, right? So we're not going to get blindsided, it's not going to happen.
It will not happen.
Okay. They are good partners, and the woman that said she was in criminal justice, I've been doing it for 30 years. And anyone who's ever, with the city of Phoenix, I was a prosecutor there for over a decade. Anyone who's ever gone on a third shift ride-along, the officers, they bring their little coffee with them, and Phoenix has different stations for the officers to go. So I talked to Ed, I said, well, how do they deal with officers? Because I know when I did the ride-alongs in Phoenix, they would go and they would go in there, write their papers or get their coffee, stop in at the local Circle K's, QuikTrips, U-Totems, all those type of stores, and they would go in there. And they'd know the guy who was, there and everything, and be able to see what was going on in the neighborhood. We don't have those type of stations here. So when I talked to the attorney, Mr. Bull, and about QuikTrip, he goes, yeah, we welcome first responders to go in there. Because when they're driving around, if they want coffee, we don't have a station by Pebble Creek. We don't have a place for those officers to go and get a pizza and get a sandwich. So I'm kind of looking at a little bit different here. You're looking at crime prevention in a way, because you're going to have officers coming and going there right by the freeway. You're going to have DPS getting off the freeway to go there. And that's when they said that they even let them go with the motorcycles. Anyone's ever known what the motorcycle, the get-up those guys have to wear? They let them go in their freezers, which I had never heard that before. And I was like very impressed. I'm like, okay, that's good. I also did domestic violence. And that's a lot of with the human trafficking that we've got problems with now, that people, there's a place that these girls can go. And I actually did have a case where the victims, the bad guy stopped a QuikTrip. The girls were able to run into, and they were probably they were runaways, probably about 15 or 16 years old, and they were able to run into the QuikTrip and get assistance. So I want you to look at it like this. I don't think this, I know we don't want a truck stop there. We agree with you. We don't want a truck stop. But I think this is going to be a really good neighbor. In fact, I'm a little jealous because I live up in Estrella and we don't have a place to fill up like this. We have just a few pumps and they're usually closed. So when we want to take the trailer or the boat to the lake, which is right up the 303, I'm the person that's going to be stopping there with my family. Or my daughter who's on her way to see friends up north is going to be the people who are going to be stopping there, because these are my 19-year-old daughter. If I say, if you need to pull over, you go to someplace safe to pull over. If you have car trouble, these places are well lit. So I think we've got it in control in a good spot. It's right by the freeway. It is far enough. There is going to be some other business there that will also buffer this as well. We don't know what it is, but there's definitely going to be another business. Filiberto's will buffer it to the east. There'll be something buffering it behind. So I think that's a really good fit. I do appreciate everyone's comments, and I think having something there once this goes up is actually safer than having an empty lot. Because I will tell you, when we find there's problems, a lot of times it's the empty lots that you draw the problems, and under the brush and stuff where the people hide. When you've got well-lit business, you've got people coming and going, that's usually a positive. So I appreciate everybody that came and speak, and I think this is a good fit for this neighborhood, so thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. You might as well stay there. Thanks, Christian. We asked our residents that spoke not to repeat what others have said, so many of the questions I have already been addressed by other council members, and I'm not going to repeat those questions. But I do have a couple of different ones for you. When plans are submitted, is it part of our normal procedure to run them through fire and police to review?
Fire, yes.
Okay. Were there any comments or concerns, feedback on this?
Earlier in the review process there were, but those comments have since been addressed.
Okay, very good. Now, one of the things I like to look for is consistency in that what are other QTs in Goodyear, how are they similarly situated with nearby residential homes? And we talked about this earlier today. We have one on Estrella, one to be built on Yuma, and then there's one at Dysart. Can we review what those distances are between the store and the closest residence?
I'm going to try to use Elmo. We'll see if I'm successful. Okay. So this is the QuikTrip in Canyon Trails. That is yet to be built. That is approximately 400 feet away from the nearest residential to the north. It's even closer to the multifamily to the west. This is the QuikTrip on Estrella Parkway at Fillmore Street. That has a 0-foot separation on the east and a 75-foot separation on the north. This is the QuikTrip on Dysart, south or north of Van Buren. That distance is technically 0 feet. So we have very similar, or we have QuikTrips that are much closer than the one being proposed today.
Okay. So obviously we have a significant distance in this, and it reminded me of a multifamily case where residents did not want a complex near their home, but we went and, I mean, my husband and I, we went and looked and measured. One of the places we compared was Robeson Reserve to its proximity there in Pebble Creek, because I recalled the conversation when that came about. And that met our requirements, 100 feet, and I looked at other ones 100 feet. And I think that when we're making decisions that impact the entire city, it's important that we are consistent. Obviously, the location of this is significantly different, and as it has been said, there will be additional buffers. I think that's all I have for you. I do have a question for either Brian or the gentleman for QT. Thank you. There has been a lot of conversation about environmental concerns, air pollution and the mix and things like that. We all use gas stations regularly, routinely. I am sure there are federal and state regulatory agencies that have a thing or two to say about how this is done. Would you elaborate, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the permitting process and to get the approvals to be able to construct, we have to go through several regulatory, including the city as well as the state and the Maricopa County as well. They regulate all the stuff, how the fuel tanks are installed. It's a very rigid and regimental process. It's a lot of on-site work that goes in, and then there's also permits that we have to do after we open, where they test everything. They completely pressurize the system to make sure it doesn't leak, and it has to hold pressure for 3 days under intense pressure. So it simulates a much more intense environment than ever gets used. We also have ongoing. All the fuel tanks are constantly ongoing and have to be monitored through ADEQ in Maricopa County. So that means that just because we built today doesn't mean we can let the system go to pot and not maintain it, or otherwise you'll fail and you'll lose your operating license. So all the stores are continually being monitored, and we have an entire compliance team that's their entire job to keep all those permits and things up to date.
All right, and so when a user uses the pump and they pump the gas, I mean, part of that, the environmental is to capture the fumes or to prevent that.
Correct. In Arizona, we do what is called a stage 2 recovery system. So those fumes have to be trapped and kept in. So when a fuel tanker comes in to drop fuel in, they actually hook 2 hoses up. One is for the delivery of the fuel, and the other is so when they drop the fuel in, it pushes the vapors through the system and actually gets captured back into the tanker truck, and then they're taken back to their facility to be properly disposed of. So it's constantly self-contained, so it does not get out.
Okay, very good. And the other question, or if there's any additional information you want to put out to residents about safety. I know you've talked about the cameras. You have security guards if you deem they're necessary in an environment. I know from personal experience, my son is a police officer in Glendale. When he used to be on patrol, I would go on ride-alongs, and we would always stop at QTs because they're welcome there. And so is there any other information that you would want the public to know about safety?
Yeah, I would say this to anybody. They have my contact information. They can find it. They can get it from me afterwards. If there's any issues during construction or even after construction, they can reach out to me. I think that that's just something that we welcome, because if someone's not satisfied with something, we do want to make it right with them, so they can reach out to me even after this fact if they have a question or if something's not right. So they're welcome to do that at any time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gillis?
Okay, Christian, I'm going to talk to you. I just want to make clear, because I heard somebody say that this area was in a fly zone. It is not in a fly zone, correct? It is only a noise area, right, with Luke on that corner? Or is there something I don't know?
Correct. I'll show you a map.
That's not a crash zone, I should say.
Correct. Pull in Elmo.
Because we have to know that.
Correct. So the QuikTrip location is this red box here.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the 65 DNL, which is a noise contour.
Right.
The APZ1 is about a mile or more north of that. The APZ2 is about 500 or more feet from the QuikTrip property.
So my question is it a crash zone?
No.
That's what I thought. So it is considered a noise area?
Yes.
Okay. Because otherwise, we would not be able to build there. We know that if it was a crash zone, correct?
The restrictions on uses are much more
Restrictions,
restricted, yes.
right. Okay. I have a comment to make to you, actually a question and a comment. We cannot tell somebody that owns a piece of property, just for the record, what to do, what to rezone, who they can sell to. We can't do that, right?
That is correct.
That's correct. So that has nothing to do with us. They bring something to you, you bring it to us, we decide what's going to go on.
State law requires that
State law, we cannot do that.
That's correct.
That's what I wanted. That's great. Okay, Christian, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's important to note that there is a lot of people in favor of this, a lot. And because I did my homework today, and 35 were in favor at the public hearing that you all had on May 22nd and 29. 1,900, as we said before, and 16 Goodyear residents were in favor. And I have a lot of these emails that came into the city, as much as I have all of your emails, that are in favor of this. And I don't think that we can ignore their emails too. And so I'm done, Christian. That's fine, thank you.
Thank you.
I actually would like to talk to Brian, because that's why I want to find all this out for the people that are in favor as well. The security cameras. How many security cameras did you say are on site?
There's approximately, or there's more than 50 at their stores, inside and outside, yeah.
Inside and out, and they're operated 24/7, all of them?
Correct. Daniel likes to tell me if you're on a QT site, you're always being recorded unless you're in the bathroom.
Well, that's a good thing to know, because I use their bathrooms a lot. Okay, so I'm with Wally on this, because I, like Wally, travel a lot at night for events. You all know that, because we come to your places at night for events. And we are women, most of us, some of us, that do travel by ourselves, and we don't have security with us. And so I always try to make sure that my car is full, but if it's not, and on occasion it's not. So if I do need gas or need to stop or have to use the restroom, and I tell you, I will hold it until I get sick before I will stop someplace at night, because I will not. It scares the you-know-what out of me. But I do stop at QT because I don't have a problem with it. I always feel safe going there, and I always see a lot of officers there. So I have had a good experience with QT. And like I said, I want to be okay with the people that do want this as well. I do not want to ignore what they're saying, too. All right, thank you, Brian. And I now would like to call Chief Mercy up, please. Police Chief Mercy. So, Chief Mercy, I have a question for you.
All right.
You know, obviously, what the crime is in Goodyear, and I have the utmost respect for fire and police. You guys know that. And I feel very, very safe with our police officers, and I trust our police officers. I think we have some of the best around. You hear me say that all the time.
Thank you.
I want to know what you anticipate for crime for a place like this, any more than we have in the other QTs, in the other areas of Goodyear. Goodyear is pretty safe. Pebble Creek area is relatively safe. I always feel safe when I go there. But I want to know what you feel as a professional, and you've been in this business, Chief Mercy, 30 years, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I would like to know what you feel. Is there more crime that you anticipate once something like this is built, or do you feel that, can you put people's minds at rest? That's what I'm asking.
It's very hard for me to predict exactly what crime would be like, but I would not anticipate that there would be any more crime in this QT than there is in our others that are close to the freeways as well.
Exactly.
Which is on Estrella Parkway and also on Dysart Road.
Right. And you have the utmost faith in your police officers.
Yes, ma'am.
That they respond quickly And did we say 4 minutes, or what did we say for time for response for something like that if there is something going down?
Yes, for a priority one call, it would be approximately 4 minutes.
And there could be 1, 2, maybe even 3 officers in the area, we don't know, depending on
correct.
who was all in that area.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Mercy, I appreciate that. So I thought that was important too, because this is a man that has been in law enforcement in this city, not everywhere, but in this city for 30 years. So I just want to put people's mind at rest a little bit on that level. I do understand what you're talking about on the other levels, but I do believe that we have to listen to those that are positive on this as well. And I do appreciate everybody coming here and telling us what they think, because that's what you should do. But I really am in favor for this. I am in favor of this because of the convenience and where it's going to be located, actually. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Councilmember Hampton.
Thank you. Yeah, lots already been said. I had a quick follow-up on the cameras. Are they going to be shared with the flock system, like Lowe's and some of the other users in the city?
So currently, QuikTrip is working on a program to be able to do that. Right now, if a police department reaches out, QuikTrip will share it, but we're not currently on any system yet where it can be like live or anything. But I know like Chandler and some other cities are working on that with us to try to get to that point.
Yeah, no, I think that would help, definitely. Response times on top of already our 4-minute response time as well. I was just curious, because I know Lowe's and some other users in Goodyear, they share that data with, they're part of the system.
Yeah, we will share it if it's requested from us. We'll get it over to the police or whatever law enforcement agency.
Yeah, it'd be great to work towards that, where it can be live as well. So, and then talking about the hours, that was, I think, Jackie and Vic and Joan and Jeff and Sandra all talked about the hours. So the hours, I imagine you want it to be 24/7 so that there'll be more people there consistently, but you shut it down and then this probably invites people to stay there, sleep. At least in my office complex, people are sometimes sleeping in their cars overnight.
Yeah.
So having a presence there at all times is, I would imagine it'd be a little safer with the cameras and everything else. People know they'll be able to go there. And I remember, I don't know who it was, but they mentioned that the pickleballs, they closes at 9, and then I'm not sure when it opens, but 6 a.m. in the morning. So there's no one playing pickleball during that time. So I was just kind of curious what the time slots were, things like that. So the pickleball won't be interrupted at that time because they're not allowed to play at that time. So really for noise and things like that could happen at that time, for the pickleball specifically, they won't be impacted by what's going on at that time period, because they won't be there.
Correct.
The other question I had, this might be for Christian, is really the church, so refinery. So the inside, to get in and out of that area, is there any decel lanes? There's not a light to turn into the QuikTrip on 166?
There is currently a deceleration lane and a traffic signal at 166th Avenue. So to access the church and the QuikTrip and the Filibertos, you could use that light. There's also a secondary access that will have a decel lane into the property approximately here.
Okay, but the traffic going down into the church and out into the church,
They could
how
use
that'll be impacted there at all? I'm sure the churches are. I know they last time the Circle K came by, they were concerned about that, but I think they've mitigated and they were neutral on that now.
Yes.
So okay, yeah, because I go to that church right there, so I'm very familiar with that corner. So okay, and then hours, real time. Yeah, I think everything else is done. When I was loan executive to United Way, QT's always been a good community partner, so they also give someone up for 5 months, like I was given up for 5 months for my old employer to help out the United Way, raise money for charities, and provide for the community as well. So definitely good company as well. That's definitely a top choice. Everybody I know that drives for a living, they prefer to go to a QT. This is social workers or nurses or hospice social workers or all those different type of users who are out and about. The QTs, I've always been told, their number one choice because they know they have a clean restroom, they have a clean place to go, and it's safe. And like you said, the human trafficking and things like that they definitely are up to make sure that's try to prevent as much as they can. So So yeah, so I think that's all the questions that I had. I definitely appreciate everybody coming out. No one likes things near their homes, but I think this is definitely, I know a lot of residents that are very excited about having a gas station here as opposed to have to drive all the way to Safeway or to Buckeye or to the I-10. So I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Wally?
I forgot to add, I wanted to thank QT for donating all of your foods that you do not sell to All Faith Community Services, which is the only food bank in our city for our residents. And we deeply appreciate that. You've always done it, even before you came to Goodyear. And we thank you for continuing that because we are trying to take care of our residents who need that assistance. So thank you.
You know, being last, it's always a very good discussion from all the council members up here on the dais. I can tell you I've had some very positive experiences at your locations. Teaching at Grand Canyon University, I've always stopped in. QT stands for quick in, quick out. And that's really kind of nice when you're trying to get to school on time. And it's always early in the morning, always clean, always positive, and always very helpful. So I think it's quality. There's a big difference between that and the other one that came behind us. So my understanding, the diesel fuel that's there, it can only be used for cars. There's different levels of diesel fuel when it comes to cars and it comes to actually the big trucks. And it wasn't mentioned there, but I'm going to mention everybody that diesel fuel is different. The stuff that you see with the big truck semis, they couldn't pull in there anyway because they don't have the diesel fuel option. You know, it's only for cars. Okay, so with that, we've got motions and second. I think we're done with that. Go ahead and open up the vote, please. Passes 7-0. Thank you. Next public hearing item is to consider as an amendment to the zoning ordinance. Christian, you're back up again. Go for it.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christian Williams, Planning Manager, and today we are having additional conversations regarding zoning ordinance text amendment updates and special use permits, and additional considerations, specifically regarding mini storage. The overarching aim is to streamline processes and save time, proactively enhancing efficiency, and this entails exploring some administrative solutions and staff-level adjustments within policy framework, minimizing the need for the Planning and Zoning Commission hearings, as well as council per your direction. By the end of tonight's conversation, the goal would be to consider a zoning ordinance text amendment for mini storage. Okay, so the use again that we're talking about today is self-storage facilities, aka mini storage. And if you'll recall, we did have a work session back in March of 2024 regarding this, and many of the feedback items were addressed and brought into this new zoning ordinance text amendment. So as a reminder, mini storage may currently be considered in C1, C2, I1, and I2 with a special use permit. And the zoning ordinance text amendment would remove the special use permit in most circumstances. The following would apply in all circumstances: no hazardous material storage, no buildings in excess of 3 stories. The storage may not occupy more than 500 feet of arterial frontage. Windows other than offices must be faux windows or not able to view inside of the storage unit to those faux garage doors. Storage yards and garage doors shall always be screened and auctions are prohibited. Storage buildings and their canopies shall be at a minimum 30 feet away from residential homes or districts when they are not platted. A minimum of a 20-foot green belt shall be provided. And a self-storage, if located within 500 feet of residential, shall be limited in hours of operation between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. In C1 and C2 specifically, no more than a maximum of 7.5 acres or 50% of a commercial site shall be storage, and not located within 300 feet of an arterial to arterial intersection, so that those can be reserved for more for different commercial uses. If they do want to deviate from that, that would require a special use permit, so there's a carve out for that. Not located within 2,600 feet of another storage unit. Council member commented that the original 1/4 of a mile was not great enough, so that was increased to a 1/2 mile. If they do want to locate within 2,600 feet of another storage unit, that would require a special use permit. No outdoor RV storage would be permitted in commercial districts. In the industrial zones, outdoor RV storage would be permitted if screened from off-site view, and there would be no size restriction, which would encourage storage to locate in our industrially zoned land as opposed to our commercially zoned land. And there would be similar design guidelines, hours of operations restrictions as commercial. I just did a high-level overview because I know we've covered some of this before, but with that overview, staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of amending Articles 2, 3, and 4 of the zoning ordinance related to convenience use mini storage. Happy to answer any zoning ordinance questions.
Thank you. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? With that, I'm going to go ahead and, I guess, close the public hearing. City Clerk, please read ordinance number 2024-1606 by title only.
Adopt ordinance number 2024-1606, amending Goodyear zoning ordinance Article 2-2 definitions, amending sections 3-3-2, 3-3-3, 3-4-1, 3-4-2 of Article 3, zoning districts, amending section 4-1-3, special uses considered in specified districts of Article 4, regulation of particular uses, and adding section 4-2-20 to Article 4-2, uses requiring additional evaluation related to self-service storage facilities, use permits, and special use permits, providing for correction, severability, and an effective date, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Good job without getting tongue-tied. Will the city clerk please enter a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 2024-1606? I see a motion and a second up on the board. Go ahead and open up for speak, and I see first one up is Councilmember Stipp.
Christian, you went through those really quickly, the changes to this. I want to talk a little bit about public comment and public input in this. So typically, special use permit opens these up for the public's participation in the process, if you will. So how has this altered that?
What this ordinance does is it took a look at all of our recently approved storage facilities, and it took a lot of the stipulations that had been placed in those that we've heard through the public process and codified that as the standard for the special use permit criteria.
So if a storage, mini storage is going to be built at 152nd and Camelback, backs up to Palm Valley 5 in that area, nobody in Palm Valley 5 will A, know about it, or B, be able to weigh in on that. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would be a permitted use with the criteria that have been established in the zoning ordinance text amendment.
Today, without this zoning change, people within 500 feet would be notified that a storage facility would be going in, correct?
That is correct.
So how do we, and if I'm the let me back up. So if I'm the applicant and I want to deviate from the current, or from the new proposed guidelines, I can go through the special use process and get before council for I'm going to say a variance, for lack of a better phrase.
There are specific areas within the ordinance criteria that you would need to go to special use permit for. Some areas would not be able to be deviated from, but if you, for example, wanted to locate closer than 2,600 feet or wanted to locate on more of an arterial road frontage, things of that nature, that would allow the special use permit process. And that would then do the public hearing and then the 500 feet and all of those processes.
So we have an opportunity for the applicant to, I'm going to say, challenge what we currently have. I mean, there's an avenue for them.
That is correct.
Okay. But there is not an avenue for a resident to challenge that.
This is the process. This is the form right here.
Yeah, tonight.
Yes.
So once that happens, we kind of give that up. I think that this last case is very telling of the public's desire to at least have some ability to weigh in on that, whether there's a way forward. Is there somewhere in the process that allows for greater resident or any resident input?
The rezonings of properties would be that opportunity because those would change the entitlement to either C1, C2, I1, I2. At that time, staff would discuss the allowed uses on that site and where those uses would be permitted. So there still is that opportunity in the land use category changes.
And that, I understand we're doing it in the industrial, so the I's just kind of broad stroke. And I don't think we have residential, we don't have a lot of residential that backs up to that industrial per se. So I'm less worried about that. I'm more worried about the conversion from a C1 or C2 to allow us storage. Those typically are the smaller neighborhood lots that are kind of similar to what we just went through. And would a mini, and we're really kind of taking away that public input piece. So if using the example, the parcel to the west of the QT, if they wish to make that a mini storage tomorrow, assuming that this gets passed, not tomorrow, but 30 days from now, nothing is said, right?
They would have to, that is actually a signalized intersection along an arterial frontage, so their distance requirements might not make portions of that site eligible for storage.
But just
yes,
kind of on the assumption, and
yeah.
just as a general, I guess is where I'm kind of going with that is there any remedy, or am I just kind of, am I swinging a baseball bat at a bunch of gnats?
I totally hear what you're saying. What this zoning ordinance text amendment does is it looks at all of the previous, I don't want to call it precedent, but it looks at all of the common storage cases, including those adjacent to residential. That's why that 500-foot rule and the hours of operations were placed in there. So staff took a deep look at all of the storage cases in Goodyear, analyzed them all, looked at all the stipulations that staff and the applicant worked through for 3 months and try to negotiate on behalf of those residents, and it makes those the standard. If they want to deviate from some of those, that's when they go to public hearing. But this provides certainty and consistency to the development community, and also I would say to the residents, because they know in a C2 property or C1 property behind their homes, how much storage can go there and what the protections are for them, such as no hazard material storage, no auctions, lighting concerns, things of that nature.
Okay, and I'm thinking back, so I hate to possess a little lack of focus on these questions, this line of questioning, but I think back to the McDonald's and the storage that was adjacent to that and adjacent to that section off of Saraville. And I think collectively, the council believed that the storage was actually a much better neighbor than what could potentially occur there. So I think we always wrestle with that, because here we heard from, we got a bunch of emails, and we heard from, several residents tonight who want to voice their concern about what's happening, and now we're taking that voice away. But in the same regard, what we have done to ensure a well-rounded community, we're trying to codify. So I guess I've just spent the last 10 minutes talking for nothing. So
Appreciate it.
Thanks for entertaining me.
Councilmember Wally Campbell.
Thank you, Christian. I want to talk to you about the RV storages.
Okay.
Because as you're familiar with the last case we just discussed, there's an RV storage right there. A lot of the residents have moved their RVs to more secure facilities, and facilities that are air conditioned for the rigs that are up to $1 million plus. You went really quick, and there was something in one of the C1, C2, or the I1 or I2 that there could be no RV storage.
So in C1 and C2, the RV storage must be done indoors.
Okay, and do you tell them that it has to be air conditioned or whatever?
We would not require air conditioning. That would be an applicant decision to meet the market that they're trying to garner.
But it could be built there as long as it was an indoor one.
Indoor. It's really about the outdoor storage component and having RVs sitting outside adjacent to residential.
Right. Well, generally when the one for Pebble Creek isn't designed as most RV storages are, because they generally have canopies where you pull your rig in. It's not necessarily closed. They do have gates and this, that, and the other. And Mr. Robeson doesn't do that.
And that type would be permitted in I-1 and I-2.
It's kind of an eyesore.
That's why it's in I-1, I-2.
All right, so I just want to make sure that we're not making it difficult to get the RV storage, because we really need them. We need them more, because people are driving now all the way almost to Luke to go into that RV storage that is so lovely, really, considering what it is. And we have a lot of folks that live in our city that have RVs. They cannot park in front of their house. There's no place to park, and they have to store them somewhere. So I just want to make sure we're not limiting that whatsoever. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Christian.
Vice Mayor?
I think I have some of the same concerns that Councilmember Stipp have. I'm maybe just coming at it from a different direction. Thank you to you and Katie for meeting with me today to talk about this and a whole laundry list of other topics. I had this, again, same concerns about, I don't want to eliminate the residents from the process, but as we talked about, what are the common themes, what are the concerns that come up? It's about ammunition storage, hazardous materials, meth labs, criminal activity, people initiating auctions for businesses. And I would say that comes up probably every single time. So what actions does the city take to mitigate these matters? And really, what's the advantage to the residents and to the city for passing this text amendment?
What I would say is as Councilmember Gillis pointed out earlier, everyone has the right to request a use permit or rezone their property to permitted uses or use permit or special use permit. That is a long process, and in that, it's starting from scratch. So there is no guarantee that an applicant will agree to some of the stipulations we've put in place to protect our residents. If this is approved, we know what the minimum protections are for residents, and the business owners know what is expected of them if they decide to do business in Goodyear. So what it does is provide consistency for the property owners adjacent to it, and it sets our new minimum standard, as opposed to staff working 3 months. Sometimes with, all of our applicants are great, but sometimes getting to these stipulations can be a challenge. So this sets what those expectations are.
Okay, so it puts a new framework around the whole public storage discussion, and this is what it is. You can take it or not.
Yeah. And I would say this ordinance takes what our residents have said throughout multiple storage components, and it's saying we hear you and we're making these the standards.
Okay. And what are the advantages for developers to go ahead and put these things in industrial areas?
There are no clustering requirements, and they can be larger than the 7.5 acres or 50% of a commercial site. So what this does do also is it moves some of that demand to industrial areas to hopefully free up our commercial corners for other commercial opportunities.
Okay, great. And I've noticed that some of our newer storage facilities have definitely improved their design and their look. So are there design guidelines included in this, and can you tell us about
100%. So when you see some storage units in county islands that I won't name off the freeway that look like there's floating garage doors hovering above the sky, that's not a Goodyear design element that we would approve. So those will be screened. Effectively, they should look like part of the neighborhood center or office buildings or actual buildings and not just garages. So a lot of those are codified here, with the exception of your nice office where you have people come in to greet you.
Okay. Well, I am definitely supportive of the idea of putting some type of parameters around this type of business and not making you start from zero for every single time. Because this is something that people have a lot of feelings about. I think we've heard them and address those concerns in such a way. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Hampton?
Yeah, going back to Councilmember Stipp and Keno's kind of thought process as well. Yeah, I'm okay with the I-11, or I-1, sorry, that's the highway. The I-1 designation, but for the public comment for C1 and C2, I don't know. I appreciate the standards, but maybe to maybe answer Councilmember Stipp's concern about having public input, maybe, is there anything in there where we could put that if a certain amount of residents voice a concern, then it goes to public comment, as opposed to just this is what it is and the public has no opportunity to speak or voice their concern?
All site plans are administrative, and this is truly the forum to address any concerns with the standard stipulations that are being placed on storage.
Right now, but if for some reason, let's say majority of these projects took all into account everybody's perspective and no one knows the issues and they all go through. But let's say there's 30 residents we get emails on that, hey, I'd rather not have a store. I'd like to have some more input on a storage unit in behind my house type thing. Is there a mechanism that we could add for that?
There is not, but I will say that with the special use permit process, all we are looking at truly is that materially detrimental component, how it circulates and how it's impacting adjacent businesses. So what this ordinance does is codify those concerns so that there should not be a problem with those materially detrimental and conformance issues.
Okay, but there's not a way to add that.
There would not be.
To this.
If this is approved, it would be administrative.
But could we put there, if 50 residents email us about this, it could go then to public meeting?
It would not, because it'd be administrative. It's just a site plan approval at that point, and then we are checking it for the criteria in the ordinance. Similar to a retail store that could be a fancy grocery store or a not so fancy grocery store.
At that point.
At that point, it's a use that's permitted.
Okay. All right, I was just curious, just to make sure the public can have a say in the process, so. All right, I think I'm okay with it. Thank you.
You good? Councilmember Gillis?
Christian, I'm all about this, and you know that, because when the Estrella one came to us, that's the one thing that I stipulated. I said, I wish they were doing RV parking, because they were not at the time, and I hoped that they came back to us eventually and wanted to do it, because I believe there's a real need for that. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did before, and I'm going to call Chief Louisi up, please. Chief Paul Louisi, Fire Chief, and he will address the situation about the meth whatever that everybody's concerned about, because I have a lot of faith in our fire department, and I think that they check that kind of stuff. And I'll let Paul tell you exactly how they deal with that. Thanks, Paul. How would you deal with that?
I'm sorry, I'm not really following the question.
We had somebody that made a comment about meth and toxic chemicals and things like that. If we got a call on something like that, and we periodically check for certain things if we get a call on something like that?
No. Well, I mean,
if we got a call, we wouldn't check.
If there was a call for service.
That's my comment.
Yes, if there was a call for service, I mean, we'd have to try to figure out what was going on.
Right.
More times than not, that would be a hazmat call. We would also work with our PD partners on something like that, but we do not routinely go around the city and try to determine if there are certain chemicals in certain storage
But to put people's minds at rest, our first responders, if they got a call, would go to the call and check whoever needed to do it, whether it be fire, police, hazmat, whatever.
Any 911 call in the city of Goodyear.
Of some type of smell or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how we handled it before. Remember when we talked about Estrella. So that's my question. Thank you, Paul.
And code enforcement. We do have code enforcement as well,
too,
and
that
they're
would check
excellent
that out.
partners when we get complaints from residents.
Okay, that's what I wanted to check. So because we have good first responders, and I know they respond to those type of things if there's an issue. If we get a call, we respond to everything we get a call to. So, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Loretano?
I think most everything's been addressed. I just want to make sure it's very clear that this is, if I'm building a storage facility and I don't want to, I want something like less than these guidelines or exceptions, at that point, it goes through public hearing and all of that, correct?
Yes, there are criteria in here that if you decided you didn't want to do them, such as the clustering amount of a commercial center that you're occupying, that would go to special use permit and it would deviate from these standards. So yes, the public would be involved and noticing would go out.
And then we would have the opportunity as well to say yay or nay. If
Absolutely.
we say, hey, there's too many close to each other, or this one's too big, bigger than it says it should be frontage-wise, then it would still go through the same process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I think this gives some security and some specifics to, you know, just the development and the public to know what can be built where. So I appreciate that, so thank you.
You got you again there, Councilmember Stipp?
Yeah, I was kind of following along with Councilmember Hampton on this public process. I can't help but think that even the requirement for a public, a public meeting, not a formal hearing, but that the applicant be required to have like they did with QT, a public forum to get feedback if it's within 500 feet of a residential or whatever. So can you go back and show me what those, or tell me specifically when, I'm only worried about those that back up to residential. And within 500 feet. I don't care about ones that are 1,500 feet away that are in C2. So.
Regardless of district, if it's within 500 feet of residential, which would not include open space tracts, but would include developed neighborhoods or platted lots or non-platted lots that are presumed to be residential, the facility will be closed daily between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. And then it will also be a requirement that there's a minimum green belt developed between the storage facility and the residential, and any canopies, for example, a canopy building, a canopy parking lot, canopy stall, that must be a minimum of 30 feet away from residential properties. And then on top of that, because it's zone C2, the distance requirements for heights of buildings also kicks in and is in effect as well.
Do you know off the top of your head what the setback requirement is between C1, C2 and a residential?
I might have to phone a friend, but I believe it's about 20, I believe it's 20 feet. So this one is in excess of that.
So it's 20 feet.
5-1.
Oh, you know the code number, but.
I know the code number, I just don't know the number in the code.
Wow. Yeah, we're gonna
I'm
have
a
to
nerd,
give,
I'm sorry.
I don't mean to do the stump question.
No worries.
I think based on this feedback that we received tonight, I'm a little more worried about it than usual, because I think I'm the one who probably pushed this. Hey, let's get rid of these. Let me just ask this generically, for the sake of example. If the setback requirement is 20 feet, is it that 20 feet plus another 30, or is it just 30?
It is what the storage requirement is greater than the commercial. So if the commercial ever changed, let's say we changed the commercial standards, the storage would always be that or in excess.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is, so if.
The green belt and then.
If the green belt, is it the green belt plus?
No, the green belt would suffice for that, but then there would be building setbacks on the property side. So let's say an HOA had a green belt, you still wouldn't be able to have a building on that property line because the C2 setbacks would kick in. What this does is protect in addition if that criteria doesn't exist.
But if I'm the storage developer, and I'm sorry that we are doing what if.
No, it's okay. This is fine.
It's really not, but if I'm the developer, I'm backing up to a residential, no green belt.
Storage would be required to put in that green belt or open space tract to buffer.
And that would be the.
Katie has a response as well.
You have the actual numbers instead of hypothetical?
Thank you, council member. If I heard the question correctly, the setback on a commercial property, the setback from a commercial building to residential is a minimum of 30 feet, but it goes up based on the building height. So it'd go up to 50 feet if the building height's 30, and then you add additional setbacks for every 5 feet after that.
And we've established that this new criteria is not in addition to that, it is, and it just is what it is, right? So if I'm gonna do a 2-story storage, which would be in excess of 30 feet, I would have 50 feet of green space. Is that, how I'm reading that or hearing that?
What this would do in addition, because the commercial building setback is about the building, it wouldn't include the asphalt. So what this does is state that that setback has to be open space that has landscaping and mature trees. You can't just run an asphalt lot adjacent to commercial or a residential property. It's stating that person now needs to put a landscape buffer in their property. So if you think back to that case on the Saraville in Indian School where they had a built-in green belt or buffer there that's being enhanced, it's almost codifying that this is what you're gonna put in an open space tract, not just paper.
I'm following that now.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think I'm done playing games, so I appreciate, again, the entertaining my questions.
Anytime.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the fact you codified all those other issues so we can streamline the process of getting this through, but at the same time, all the issues you had in the past that came up with all the hearings, et cetera, so that you had those certain minimums up there. And I think that's great as far as moving the process further. So I'm on board. With that, go ahead and open up the voting. Passes 7-0. Thank you. We have 4 items for business. I'd like to remind council, wait for a motion and a second for discussion. First item is to consider Rainbow Valley Energy Storage Annexation Request. Who is going to start this one off? Is that you, Katie? All right. Just go ahead and introduce yourself for the public, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Katie Wilkin, Development Services Director. The item before you tonight is the initial authorization for an annexation request. This project is located at the southern extent of the city, about 4 miles south of State Route 238. And to try and provide some context, this is State Route 238. This star is where the school and fire station are. This star is Kinney and 83rd, where the primarily where the residents in the Sonoran Valley area live. And then this green area is a rough drawing of the proposed project location, with the red being the city limits. So you can see it's partially already within the city and partially outside of the city limits in unincorporated Maricopa County. Because of the significance that annexation represents, there is a unique process for annexation requests. While we're doing the staff review of the annexation, we come to City Council to get authorization to proceed with the annexation process. If Council determines that staff should not proceed with the annexation, this would be the final step and the case would be closed. However, if Council gives staff direction to proceed with the annexation request, one, I do want to make the point that it does not commit Council to approving the annexation. There would be a public hearing in the future, and Council would make the final decision on annexation at that time. What we would do is collect an additional fee and additional required documents. In this particular case, we'd also collect a case for a pre-annexation development agreement, and then we would go through the reviews of those items, doing the full review for the annexation, as well as addressing any concerns we hear from City Council tonight. The proposed annexation is for just under 830 acres. The purpose of the annexation is to facilitate a solar energy generation project, as well as an associated battery energy storage system as part of the use. The proposed use does require a special use permit, and that is a separate process that also goes through the public hearing process. So notices would be sent out to surrounding properties, the property would be posted, and there would be a public hearing for input on the special use permit process itself for the energy generation facility and battery storage. The project includes 1,350 acres that are already in the city, and as I said, about 830 acres needs to be annexed for a total project area of just under 2,200 acres. 668 acres of the property is Arizona State Land Department land. The general plan currently designates the property as scenic neighborhood. The county zoning is RU 190, and state law requires that when you annex property into the city, you have to designate an equivalent zoning designation that it has under the county. For Goodyear, that equivalent zoning designation would be agricultural urban AU, which allows 1 dwelling unit per acre. The current land use of the property is vacant, undeveloped property. As part of the initial application, the applicant did provide a fiscal analysis for the annexation request. I do want to note that the fiscal analysis we received was for 711 acres, so the numbers will be slightly off because it did expand a little bit since then, but it's not a significant difference in the annexation request. The fiscal analysis provided information on one-time revenues as well as ongoing property revenues. And I want to note too that with the fiscal analysis, the life was anticipated to be 35 years, which about 5 years for permitting and construction and 30 years for operation. So if the annexation and special use permit were both approved by City Council, it would be anticipated that there'd be about $6 million or $171,000 per year in increased property taxes. If the annexation did not go through, but the special use permit was approved, then it would represent about $78,000 per year, so a difference of $93,000 per year if there's annexation or not annexation. And we don't have specific data on expenses at this point to share with you, but those numbers were simply revenue, not revenue and expenses taken into account. Upon staff review of the project, we noted several challenges in developing the project. The first being that the site is quite remote, about 4 miles south of State Route 238. There is a lack of infrastructure to service the property. It's not in our water service area, and it was not included in the most recent integrated water master plan. There is no currently water resource available to serve the property. The solar facility use does need very little water, but it is a project life of 35 years. There is a lack of infrastructure to serve the property also with roads. There are no roads there's no paved roadways in the area. The pre-annexation development agreement would address the dedication and improvement of roadways to what is needed to serve the property. However, once they're maintained, then it would be a city maintenance responsibility to maintain those roads. There are potential concerns that would need to be addressed by the applicant of the battery energy storage system and being able to service the property through public safety. And then, of course, as I said, the solar facility has very few infrastructure needs. However, there is a risk that even if we approve the special use permit, once we annex the property, as you know, it's annexed as part of the city. If for some reason the project fell through, we could not de-annex the property later. Or again, at the end of the life of the project, if it wanted to be converted to something else, it would be zoned agricultural urban, which allows 1 dwelling unit per acre. If directed to move forward with the annexation request, the next steps would be that staff would work with the applicant to address the concerns we've brought up and any additional concerns that council brings forth tonight. We would have them submit for a pre-annexation development agreement and bring that for council consideration ahead of the annexation and special use permit requests. So at this point, we are requesting direction from City Council. Again, there's 2 options. The first being that that council not authorize staff to move forward with the annexation, in which case this case would be closed and we would not do any further work for the annexation request. The other option is to authorize staff to move forward with the annexation request, and then we will get additional information, work on the pre-annexation development agreement, and bring that to you at a future council meeting for discussion and possible action. That concludes my presentation. I would like to note that Jordan Rose, representing the applicant, is also available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Hold on there, Jordan. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Wait till we get, because I'm sure there's going to be some questions for you, Jordan. Anybody in the audience like to speak? Okay, with that, can I get a council? Please enter a motion and a second to direct staff initiate the annexation process for the proposed annexation of 828.33 acres of land generally located 4 miles south of State Route 238, west of Maricopa County, Pinal County line. Do I see a motion and a second? I see a motion and a second. With that, I'm going to go open it up for discussion. Before we do that, I want to kind of start it off here for a second, and just a quick question for Jordan. If I recall, if we move forward with the pre-annexation, it would include, the development agreement would include, you'd be responsible for public safety, road, street, water, the entire piece of the cost associated with that particular project. Is that accurate?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, thanks for having us tonight. And that's our intention, is to negotiate a pre-annexation development agreement that would fully put the cost of those things onto the applicant and not the city.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we've got Councilmember Hampton up.
Yeah, and I guess for Katie, so some verify, you probably answer the question too. So for this meeting is just for the annexation. If we annex the 828 acres, or say move forward, we still get another shot at this to say, do we want solar or not have solar there?
Mayor and Councilmember Hampton, thanks for the question. Yes, tonight is really just a first step. We have more of the project is already in Goodyear, and we'll move forward in that direction with the use permit. And then this is a smaller portion that's in the county. And so the question is just, do you want to unite those and work towards, a full project with the city? And you'll see it again after we negotiate this agreement, and you'll see it again with the zoning, and you can make decisions, policy decisions at that time. We just want to be able to, talk with your staff and try to work something out that would make it streamlined and, hopefully very beneficial to the city with the green energy and providing some power for the data centers that you have. And also, what wasn't in that report was the $27 million that'll go directly to the Mobile School, elementary school, and the adult learning education in Mobile.
So there'll be a use permit about the solar, is what you're saying in the future?
Yes, I'm sorry. That was a really long-winded way to say yes,
No,
there'll be a use permit.
don't
I'm sorry,
remember, I
Councilman.
don't remember seeing all that extra stuff. For example, like you working with all those other things, the 27 million. I don't remember reading that in the staff report, but that sounds great. I just haven't seen that in here. So, was it in there, or is that just new to us?
Mayor and council member, it's certainly in our economic study.
Oh, okay. The Elliott Paul. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Another question I had. Yeah, I was curious about the public safety. I didn't know what the public safety was because it is all out of our way. I don't know what that would look like. You providing public safety. Does that mean you want to provide a fire truck and pay for firefighters? And because I know, for example, I just know when the first time APS put a battery-powered unit, battery storage for their solar project up at Flagstaff, it burnt down within like a week. So I just want to make sure that worst case scenario that we can even maintain worst case scenario up there because we just have a brush fire truck there now. So those kind of uses, I just want to make sure that's good to go.
Mayor and council member, I appreciate that. We actually just started discussing with fire chief about how to serve the site. There is a station right near the Mobile School, so down, just very close to this site, and hopefully we'll be able to fund that to make it even, more effective. We'll wait for, some more discussion with the fire chief, and bring that back to you in the agreement. But
I understand this is just the opportunity to allow you to talk to our staff to figure all that stuff out, and you'll bring all that package back to us, and then we'll decide if that's something we want to move forward with or not. Precisely. At that point. So, yeah, I think I'm okay with you guys moving forward with the annexation. At least talk to our staff, figure out all the mechanics of what that looks like, and the funding and the financials and the numbers, and then then we can decide at that point.
We very much appreciate that. So
all right.
Thank you.
I think that's the questions I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell?
Thank you. Well, I'll be upfront. I'm adamantly opposed to annexation after being burned so badly on Mobile, and we're still paying for it, and we're getting nothing from Mobile. I just hate to think, even though it sounds like a wonderful opportunity and we're promising all this stuff, the stories that I was told is that the previous council was told what a developer was going to do and how much he was going to pay and what he was going to build a new school and he was going to do all of this stuff, and then he went belly up. And we got stuck with it. And we're spending millions of dollars every year for just police and fire. I don't want to do any roads. I don't want to take over any more responsibility for people to come out of the woodwork and say, I got the land from the government, it's free, so I'm a city citizen that we didn't even know about. So I'm sorry, Jordan, I just can't support any annexation down in Mobile. If we could, I'd try to figure out a way to give it back, but we can't.
Mayor and Councilwoman, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your candor as always. The thing I would say is, if you can, I don't know if you can see this screen of where we're at, that may help. Thank you. You can see that most of the projects are already in the city. And so I would suggest that in this case, you weren't, I don't think any of you were on that council.
None of us were on it. We did speak against it, but we weren't on council.
And I think the city, under the leadership that you have now with yourselves and your staff has, perhaps learned from what happened there. And so the agreement that they would create with this project would be far different, I think, than what was approved with Amaranth. And I would think it would address those things. I mean, the bottom line is this is already located in the city, and so we just want to unite the project, and I think allows the city of Goodyear to move forward with control of that property. And you'll have that control under a use that is very low. I mean, there's not any traffic, there's no water use. It's just generating energy for, your existing, economic development drivers in Goodyear and around the, the city. So I totally respect what you're saying, but I think with Winnett and Rorick and Keeney and your leadership, that they're gonna negotiate something that's not like what happened. I mean, how, clearly the lessons learned, and I don't know all those lessons, but I think you all do, and so.
Because, the school's a county school. We don't have anything to do with the school at all. So, but that being said, until I'm convinced who's going to pay for the roads even to get in there to build, because I am not going to agree to do any of that. Because the more we expand our footprint down there, the more responsibility we're going to have. And if you have a fire, how do you put it out? Can one fire station do it? Can one fire truck do it? We have no water, so they've got to do it differently. There's just a lot of, I just think I'm just not comfortable with it, Jordan. I'm sorry, but I am just not a favor of any annexation of anything, because it costs us too much money in the long run, and we're stuck with it for the rest of the city's life.
And Mayor and Councilwoman, I fully appreciate your sentiment, and I think the things that you just outlined, I would ask you to consider directing staff to talk to us about, and then if we come back and we don't meet those concerns, and we don't pay for the roads, and you don't think that we've done all of those things, then you have the full ability to say no. And tonight you outlined exactly what you expect, and if we can't perform, then we'll expect you to have that position when that actual question comes. Because today that's not the question. The question is just simply like, could we put this together and make something good for the city? And then you consider it and decide if it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman.
Vice Mayor.
Well, this really is a complex issue, and my initial reaction to this was comparable to Wally, in that why in the world would we want to continue to annex it? But the interesting thing, there's already so much of this land already in Goodyear. So to say, no, we don't want to annex, and you still choose to go forward, we still have the whole special use permit, all the things. And so I think that bears some conversation and some consideration, because what we have now is really pretty minimal information other than a laundry list of concerns, some of which I'll share with you tonight. But, what you're able to negotiate with the city in terms of water infrastructure and things like that could change the outlook, but it feels like it's very preliminary to say. So I would like to talk to Katie about what the annexation process is. Just if you would give us an overview. I mean, for like such a big chunk this is.
Thank you. So they've made an application with preliminary information, and staff has done the review. And this part of the process is a City of Goodyear process that was adopted by us. And so tonight is the time for you to bring up concerns you have, so staff and the applicant know what we need to address before we come to you before an ordinance. However, if council knew there's nothing you can do to address our concerns, you might direct staff to not move forward. But if you think we can through a pre-annexation development agreement, you would direct us to do so and come back to you. So then the next steps, we would continue to review it, and since we have a pre-annexation development agreement to work with, it's a separate process. We'd start working on that and through all these items that we need to work through on how to service the property, and any contingency plans should, something happen that nobody expects, as Jordan was talking about. And then when we're ready, we would, the applicant would file a blank petition, and once the blank petition's filed, there's a clock. They have 1 year to gather all the petitions with signatures.
Okay.
Once we get all those signatures, we can then come to City Council with the annexation for action. And again, regardless, even if you tell us to move forward tonight, that doesn't commit you to approving the annexation in the future. That's completely at council's direction at that future meeting. And again, the annexation also requires a public hearing. We'll send out notice so that the neighbors and community members can come and speak on the any concerns they have with the potential annexation, and then council would act on the annexation.
So what is the percentage required to make this favorable for the residents? I mean, if there are petitions or...
Legally, to require, you need 51% of property owners, both in land and in valuation. So we will get all that information from the county assessor, from the Department of Revenue, and with the applicant's help, make sure we have signed petitions from at least 51%. Of course, our goal and the applicant's goal is to have 100% of petitions. Sure. But legally, council can annex an area with as little as 51%.
Okay. Could property owners be annexed then against their will?
Yes, that is permitted by state law.
Okay. There was a mention of 27 parcels with no common ownership. Can you or Jordan address what that is?
Mayor and Vice Mayor, we have site control of all of those parcels. So when we came back, if we're able to proceed, we'll hopefully hand you a petition of everyone.
Okay. On this map here, up at the top, there's a square that's just looks like some geography surrounded by a red, some kind of box. Can you tell us what that is?
That is a Mayor and Vice Mayor. That is a individual who has not yet wanted to annex. The middle, is that okay? That's what you're talking about, yeah.
So is there a home in that property? The donut hole, yeah.
Thank you. If we're talking about this
Yes.
right here.
Yes.
This is already within the City of Goodyear city limits. It is private property. There is a residence on the property. So it is not part of the project, but it is already within the city limits.
Okay. So it looks like they would be completely surrounded on four sides. They would have to be granted some access to their property. Correct?
Yes, there is this Mahalia Road that accesses their
Okay.
property, but when they have not yet submitted the special use permit because we wanted to get direction
Right.
tonight. As part of that special use permit, we will need to look at setbacks that might be appropriate to that resident, everything we do with all of our development review proposals and adjacent residents, absolutely.
And I do want to talk about concerns because as I read it, I understood that the intent is to have the annexation and the special use permit process to run concurrently. So, okay. All right, well, let's talk some about infrastructure. And when I read about the annexation, the Goodyear is required to provide infrastructure and services within 10 years. I know that the applicant has indicated we don't need water and wastewater. We have a well. We're going to use septic. But I don't know, and maybe this is for legal or Katie or somebody, if you can just opt out of the infrastructure. I mean, what's still our liability? Or maybe and these are things you aren't, I don't expect you to have answers for, but on the spot. But, you know, what is our liability for the infrastructure? And our city, we have a philosophy of growth pays for growth. And so this is a significant growth project, but how does that factor into this whole infrastructure dynamic? And, you know, what water rights do you bring to the table? Do you have access to water? Is it anything that would be benefit for us? And for water, you know, what would be the impact on our water designation to take on this additional acreage? Then I'm going to go ahead and move on to public safety concerns. You might have to watch the replay for everything I've said, but I did have a conversation with Chief Louisi earlier today. Had a lot of meetings today about a lot of different topics. But this land is prone to flooding during monsoons, which may make it inaccessible. The land's also prone to brush fires. And so you've got a lot of dynamics. Will you be prepared if somebody can't get in or can't get out of the property because of the things that are going on? Regarding the emergency response, we talked about, you know, batteries is a whole new science for fire service and what the studies say. And certainly what my understanding from the chief was that in order to put it out, it requires a lot of water, a lot, more so than a storage facility located on the property. And so definitely would want to know if there was a significant event, how the applicant, you know, is going to be able to address that. Mutual aid is far away. It's, I understand, at least 25 minutes or more away. So if our one truck out there isn't able to meet your need, you're not going to help. And even if we didn't annex the additional land, and some of it still stayed in the county, they don't offer any type of emergency services. And then what would our obligation be then to provide services to all that? Then certainly there's just the ability to access the property in case of fire, medical emergency. I mean, there's roads. You know, we've got big equipment that needs, you know, paved, decent roads to get in that would not be washed away by storms and things like that. And so that's just, you know, just top of mind types of things that I was thinking about today and trying to encapsulate. So, you know, whether or not we fully annex this property or not, these are still going to be concerns that will have to be addressed. And so at this point, I can support the exploration of an annexation to the point where you talk about all of these as well as many other issues that I had not thought about, and I'm sure other council members will have, knowing that we do have an opportunity to weigh in somewhere along the line.
Mayor and Vice Mayor, thank you for that. I took decent notes, and I will watch the replay, and then I'll spend a lot of time with Rorik. I know he's really excited about that, if you allow me. So, thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Loretano?
So thank you for bringing this forward. I think I was on the same mindset because none of us were on council, and we continue to see Mobile just kind of languish out there. And it was promised all these houses, kind of like a second city center, libraries, commercial, a road to connect Goodyear. But as I look through what you're proposing, that's different. This is different. This definitely is a low-use area, and this is going to be a low-use project. We don't worry about people coming or going except for the employees, so we do need some sort of road, but not necessarily the same type of road to connect that we were talking about originally up there. I listened to the vice mayor. She brought up many of the concerns. One is obviously the battery issue. What type of foam, water, will there be water set on site for our fire to use, like stored on site in case there's a fire? I think those are really good points that need to be explored. My other would be obviously safety, because it is very, it's out there. It looks like it pretty much borders down Pinal County for people that can't see this map at home. So it is kind of very rural out there. There's not a lot of people coming and going from here. So we'd want to make sure that it was secure, cameras. You know, we're going to be putting up a flock system with our police, so maybe some sort of interchange when they select the cameras so that they somehow can read each other to make sure that this area is secure, because we don't want people getting in there and causing damage, because then it could cause a lot of harm. So I think those are some of the areas that I would like to look at, and obviously the roads, and it is so rural, how we can best do that. I think from looking at this, I'm okay going forward, because like you said, that was what I was kind of thinking, it's still going to go forward anyway, the top portion of the project. So, and it's not as huge as Amaranth was, and it's a whole different animal than what that was. I just want to make sure that we do have all those like I's crossed, and I think it's good to go through and explore to see if this is a good fit and it's going to work. And then same thing with that little, I heard someone say donut hole, that buttonhole, that donut hole that's there. That person is a Goodyear resident, so we do want to make sure that they're talked to about, you know, do we need some sort of fencing between them and the property or road or something to make sure that they're comfortable, because this project apparently will surround them. So those are my comments. So I do support going forward and looking at these issues and developing them and talking more to Rorick and to our public safety to see what can be done here. So thank you.
Thank you. I very much appreciate this.
Councilmember Hampton?
Yeah, thank you. I didn't realize we had to we're gonna bring up all our concerns to this one, so I was curious. So, but they brought up some great questions as well. And looking at the map here, so the city of Goodyear is the yellow, the blue is what you want to annex, and that purple one is in Pinal County. So that is not part of, that Pinal County is not annexed into Pinal County.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Thank you.
And I see I see the power line going across the project, so I'm sure you hook it into right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I think I heard Katie say that if for some reason we approve it, we move forward, and the project does not go, then this land reverts to ag, and can it, I'm assuming in the future, it can be rezoned to something else if it needed to be.
Mayor and council member, yes, under your zoning code, it would be ag with a use permit, and you could decide what you wanted to do with it, but certainly it wouldn't be a high-intensity use.
Okay.
Unless you chose to rezone it at some point in the future.
Yeah, and then I had another question, but I can't. Okay, and then, yeah, I guess the more of the concerns as well. They brought up safety, engineered safety concerns. Also, I believe, the glare, if there is a glare to it, to the neighborhood, the schools, all those kind of things. I know they produce a lot of heat as well, so I'm not a huge fan of solar. I prefer they be small modular reactors or something like that to actually produce real power, not just minuscule power. So with the amount of land that they have, but yeah, so those are the two things with that. And the other question was around, you talked about safety. There was another question I had around the land there. Okay. I'll already come back to it. But yeah, no, I'm okay with the moving forward, at least exploring it. But all the cost is what I think most people are concerned about. So how do we maintain it? What does it look like? Access, roads, all the things you already mentioned. So I'm sure you're all over it. So yeah, so looking forward to what that deal would look like in the future. But just really curious if it doesn't happen, what we're going to be left with. Oh, the question was, is there any residents living there currently in the annexed area? That if we were to annex them, that we are held to their to supporting them or to providing services to them?
Chair and council member, no, not on this property
Okay, well, that's good to know too.
that we know of. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
'Cause I'm okay with annexation, especially the checkered board that's in our southern part of Goodyear right now that I've been in favor to try to annex already. This is easier because it's really only you guys that are the single owner of the property. So it should be a lot easier to annex it. So, all right, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you, Jordan.
the comments.
Councilmember Gillis?
Hey, Jordan, can you just run by me again what you said you were willing to pay for as far as schools, road, that type? Just run that by me again one more time.
Certainly. Mayor and Councilwoman Gillis, anything that is a cost to the city, we're hoping to be able to put in a pre-annexation development agreement that would obligate us to pay for those things.
Okay. In
So
other words,
roads and fire and
upgrading the
sewer
schools
water
and
all
fire
of those
department, things like that?
The things that are necessary for this development, absolutely.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. I'm all about it because I'm about Mobile. I'm the newest member, obviously, and I don't understand why they annexed down there from the very beginning, way back when, but we did. And so it is a part of Goodyear. I've said this before. I don't think those people should be treated any less than we are treated. I think we should have respect for them. And that means taking care of those schools and taking care of our fire department down there. And I took a trip down there with Chief Louisi, and I did see 2 and 3 classes per schoolroom, which is like back in the freaking 1800s, okay? So I'm not okay with that. Those kids need to have some type of opportunity down there, and they do not have it right now. So if this is something that we can give them by doing something like this and helping out, I know what our fire department looks down there, and it's sad, and I know that I'm going to be making another trip right after the break, sometime in September, so beware. So this is what I'm going to be doing to find out if we in fact are going through with some of the things that we said we were going to do back 6-8 months ago. So I am for it. I'm for going forward and finding out what's going to go on and bringing it back to us so we can figure out if it's something we do want to pursue or not. And I appreciate you wanting to do it.
Thank you so much. And Mayor and Councilwoman, just to note, I looked at the taxing districts just before this meeting, and the taxes for the schools go to the mobile elementary and the mobile adult education. So that's the 2 taxing districts, and you probably understand that better than I do, but
yeah.
So
and
that should
I'm
help.
happy that you're going
Yeah.
to do that because I think, like I said, I think those kids deserve better than we're giving them because they are a part of this city and our fire department as well. So we'll see what you come back with, and then we can take it from there. That's all you're asking.
That
Thank
is
you.
precisely. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Councilmember Stipp?
I have my thoughts together on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, no rambling. Very specifically, in the blue part of this map, there are a number of parcels. I know you guys conferred with one another, but there are no homes on any of those parcels. Is that correct? Not in the stuff in yellow that we already own. But like Councilmember Hampton, I want to make sure that we are not expanding our service area.
Remember, some people are in tents.
Well, yeah, you can't. Actual residents, not,
Some sort of permanent.
yeah.
Thank you for the
Not campers and-
clarification. Mayor and council member, it sounds like there is a sort of I don't know how to term it, dilapidated shack on one of the sites that perhaps a family may use to go to a campsite. That may in fact exist.
Okay, but
Yeah.
there's no permanent
It does not appear there's
residential
any
structures.
permanent
Okay.
residential structures, yeah,
Okay,
as far as we.
and
Oh,
perhaps
no,
in
no,
this
there's
exploration, you may find the answer to that question.
Yes.
Okay. So you want our concerns, so here's
Please.
two that I have. Number one is zoning versus the annexation, which is really the chicken versus the egg. If we give you annexation without specific zoning, we have just annexed 830 additional acres of God knows what for the future. We can't zone property that's not in the city, but we can't annex property without the zoning. So for me, these two things need to come sandwiched together, that we are going to be annexing zoned property for this particular use and not a, and I think the hesitancy, to Councilmember Campbell's point, is we annexed 10,000 acres with the promise of residential, and it even came with zoning. We've even got zoning out there. And the development obviously went away. If we have hard zoning on this for a solar field, whatever that's going to be, then a future council can say yes or no to a future residential. But a blank, well, we're just going to zone, that's my concern, that we have no quote-unquote clawback for later. So that's kind of that. All the rest of the stuff, to be quite frank, if you want to build a solar field out there and we can't get water and it burns to the ground, I mean, that's your risk, right? I can't say yes or no to that. You guys know you know where it's at. You obviously have looked at the area. You know what you have access to. So whether it floods or it burns, or, I mean, that's the risk that you're taking. So I'm less concerned about that. What I am concerned about is if we don't annex this area in blue and you're going to build anyway, we are going to service that anyway. Automatic aid, mutual aid, the fact that we are responding to areas down in that region. I'm not even going to call it Mobile, but we are responding to calls outside of our city limits all the time. If this project starts to burn down in that blue area and it's not in the city, we're going anyway. So we might as well take the land, is kind of my point, kind of going forward. So I share the concerns with the rest of the council. I think moving forward is, at least at this point, the exploration is probably worth the journey. So let's go ahead and take it without any future commitment right now. I think this conversation is probably going to occur, quite frankly, after I'm gone. So I don't think you're going to wrap this up in 6 months. So, but I think the effort will, as they say, the juice will be worth the squeeze. So,
Vice Mayor?
All right, well, yeah, that was good. I have a addendum to what Councilmember Stipp said. You know, the idea we just let it burn, I mean, I guess that is an option, but I think we have to also determine what the toxicity is in the smoke, or, you know, what the environmental hazards, and you know, say, well, we have floods, fires, whatever. It's just going to be imperative we don't put any of our public safety or contracted public safety in any kind of harm's way. You know, somebody needs rescuing or a fire. So granted, if the whole thing goes, there's probably not enough water to put it out. I mean, it will go, but I think we have to anticipate, you know, just making sure we don't put our staff in harm's way. Thank you.
And I think the discussion you got, Katie, is to how to explore to go forward. One thing, I think the development agreement is going to be critical to make sure that the costs are covered, not by us, by the project. And also, as far as, I think one of the mistakes in Mobile, and I don't know if we can do it or not, and I talked to the attorney about that, is some type of, I don't know what the legal term is, like an insurance policy or whatever. If X doesn't happen, there's a binder or whatever the case may be where we have access to complete whatever had to be completed. I think that was the missing part in the other one. because when they went out of business, the road was just sitting there, and we had no way to access any type of insurance policy for the 20 million or whatever for the road. So that's something I'd look for the attorney and with the development agreement, and Jordan, you guys to work all that stuff out to make sure it's all covered. I know it's hard to think of everything, but what I'm hearing here, it's worth exploring, because we're not done. You just come back and people go, well, it's not there. But I think Bill raises a good point as far as if we don't annex the blue, the project's going forward anyway. Well, we're going to end up down there anyway. So, but I think it's important to learn from our mistakes in the annexation and make sure we get that sound piece in there. So I think, Katie, you got, because this is what it's not a vote. It's, let's see. Is this a vote? Please request to speak for, what do we got here? We got a vote for direction or what? To explore further? Okay, with that, go ahead and open it up.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your
6-1.
suggestions. Thank you for your leadership, and we'll come back to you with something hopefully great.
Okay,
Thank
with
you.
that, how about we take a 10-minute break?
Have a great
Everybody
summer.
with me there? Take about a 10-minute break and we'll be back. to go ahead and introduce yourself. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Barbara Chappell, Water Services Director. And I'm here to talk about the Fifth Amendment to our infrastructure agreement with Microsoft. So for some background, I wanted to go over our initial agreement with Microsoft. Started way back in December of 2018. Council approved zoning and our initial agreement that would cover 5 buildings. It was one of the first data centers and was the first water-cooled technology for Goodyear. This site is located near Bullard and Broadway roads, so it's in the city's water service area. And because they were water-cooled, there was significant amount of infrastructure, both on and off-site, that was required, and that was why we entered into this initial development agreement. It was first amended in July of 2020, and this was to allow, so one of the improvements that they had to do was improve Broadway Road. At the time, we were in the process of designing and installing a raw water pipeline for our surface water facility. And so this amendment allowed them to postpone their road improvements so we could put our pipeline in first and then pave the road. So that was what that one was about. The second amendment allowed them to move forward with their second building. Now that we had actual data from the first building, it was much less water and sewer demand than we had expected. And so the original limits that were set could handle both buildings. Then on the third amendment, we sought to limit their discharges and required some compensation for the actual demand and capacity needed in the wastewater system, both the sewer and the wastewater treatment. We also had documented the requirement for a clear water discharge line and set an completion date for that. Shortly after, it was amended again the summer of 2023 in June. The fourth amendment was to further accommodate the pace of their project and provided for the sale of a booster station and property in the middle of their development. That brings us to the Fifth Amendment this evening. The main deal points is surrounded around our booster station 8. It will allow us to continue to operate this booster station while they're developing on their site. Microsoft will remain responsible and will fund through an escrow account the costs associated with the design and construction of replacement. We had a study done by Brown and Caldwell that established the budget for those items as just over $3.5 million, and Microsoft will be providing those funds to the city so that we can replace our facility. It also facilitates the development of their property. And once the new replacement facilities are in operation, Microsoft will be responsible to demolish the existing facility, and then they'll purchase the land that facility was on, so it can complete their site. Just for visuals, I wanted to show here in this weird shaped little spot is this booster station, booster site 8. I gotta go back up, sorry. There is a storage tank. Used to be a well on the site. That well had been abandoned years ago, so it's only fed by our distribution system. So our desire is to actually move storage to a site 18 where we have 3 wells and treatment, and so it makes more sense to have storage there. So we'll be taking the money that Microsoft will be providing and building our storage there. And with that, we'll take any questions, and our recommendation is to approve the resolution so we can amend our development agreement.
Okay, thank you. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Seeing none, will see clerk plead resolution number 2024-2417 by title only.
Adopt resolution number 2024-2417, approving the Fifth Amendment to Infrastructure Development Agreement for Project 1011, authorizing the termination of drainage easements, providing direction, authorization, and an effective date.
Thank you. Council, enter a motion and a second, 2024-2417. See a motion and a second. Open for discussion. First up, Councilmember Campbell.
Barbara, in this ordinance, and I apologize, I didn't read the ordinance. I did meet with you, but I didn't read the ordinance. Is there a stipulation of how it's going to be paid? Is it going to be paid up front? I mean, I don't want them to drag it $100 million this year and $50 million next year, and because if we're going to go build it ourselves, We need the money up front before we build it, before we bid it.
Yep, thank you, it's a great question. In the agreement, in this amendment, it describes the instructions for setting up an escrow account for the money to be deposited in.
And then you
And then
would
we'll
withdraw
draw
from it.
off of the
Okay.
escrow account to fund the project.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Seeing none, let's open up for a vote. Passes 7-0. Thank you, and you're back up again. Next business items, consider approving the contract amendment for the Rainbow Valley Water Reclamation Facility expansion and operation improvements. Again, Barb, you're up.
Thank you. Okay, so this is our Rainbow Valley Water Reclamation Facility. It's located near Willis and Rainbow Valley Roads, as shown here. It is permitted for 0.75 million gallons per day. Was constructed by the original developers in Estrella Mountain Ranch back in 2004 and serves most of the Estrella community and all of Cantamia. The original plant construction did not include redundancy or peaking factors. So just as like a quick example, the wet well at the influent, while it was designed to treat 750,000 gallons, it was designed as an average throughout the day. We see most of those flows in the morning and in the evenings when people are getting ready for work or when they're at home making their dinners. So we were having some operational concerns. And so when we talk about things like that, it's those little pieces of the plant that can't handle those peaks. Additionally, we have committed via our plat process all of this capacity. So Estrella has a lot of plats and there's still room to grow, but we're getting close to needing this expansion. So when we did our first contract, this is the GMP2, GMP1 addressed our immediate concern with the influent wet well, and it also master planned our facility, defined our needs for the next 10 years. So during that process that we worked with our partners at Harvard on, we established that the expansion should be a 1.25 million gallon per day expansion that would bring this facility to a 2 million gallon per day at a budget of about $50.5 million. So along with increasing the capacity, project will clean up other issues such as floodplain. So on this image here, what we're trying to show is the pink area is a floodplain area, and you can see some of the facility is already in there, and for future expansions, we need to do some drainage work in the area. We need to support the future growth. And for this particular GMP, purchase long lead items such as some aluminum covers for our odor control and some mechanical equipment. We will have future GMP items will come before council at various, throughout our schedule for other items such as additional equipment and for the construction of the facility. The project construction schedule is that the expansion piece will be done by December 31st, 2026, with the remainder of our operational items being addressed by June of 2027. So we have a recommendation for approving our GMP2 to further the advancement of this expansion. And then I had one more item that ties to this one.
All right.
Okay?
All right, any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Not much left. Will the city council please enter a motion and a second to authorize the contract amendment for the expenditure of funds for capital improvement projects? CIP project number 60077, Rainbow Valley wastewater treatment expansion, and 60110, Rainbow Valley wastewater operation improvements for GMP2 up to $7,750,000. I have a motion, a second. I see a motion and a second. Let's open it up to vote. I see first up is Councilmember Stipp. You're on.
Mayor, thanks. I didn't want this to go by without anything being said. The improvements needed to the Rainbow Valley Water Reclamation Facility are huge, not only for Harvard, but for us as a city. And the fact that we now have access to the expanded capacity there, or the future potential for expanded capacity, will not only be of benefit to Harvard, but also to anybody else who's looking to access that plant, and something that we have not had in the past. So I'm glad that we're spending some time and getting this facility right, or getting it above the minimum standard, I think is probably a better way to say that. This is going to be money well spent, and I'm appreciative of the partnership that we have with Harvard, and I'm looking over your shoulder, Barb. But I'm really appreciative of that partnership as well, that they are looking to make improvements in the right way, with the right mindset. Not that previous owners hadn't been, but I think we really are kind of marching in the same direction with Harvard, and I really appreciate that. And Barb, your leadership in water services is beyond comparison, so thank you for everything that you do.
Councilmember Gillis?
I second what Bill just said. I think that you've done a great job, Barb. And I also think that Harvard has done some impeccable improvements up there. I like you guys a lot, you know that, and I love what you're doing. And I know you laugh at me every time you bring something to me because I'm always excited about it. Anyway, I think you're doing a great, great job. And I just can't say enough about it. And plus, you're really nice people. So thank you for that. And Barb, you are the best.
Thank you. Can we go ahead and open up for a vote? Passes 7-0. And not last, but you're back up again there, Barb.
Great,
Let's
great
go for it.
segue into our
Yes, a segue.
development agreement
There
for this
you go.
expansion with our partners at Harvard, or as we're calling them, Estrella North LLC is the official term right now in the DA. Okay, so I just wanted to cover some of the major deal points on the development agreement that is before you this evening. First of all, the project management. So the city is going to be responsible for the management of the delivery of this project. We will be using the design build method, and so multiple GMPs will be coming forward throughout the project, so council can approve those purchases. There's a portion of the project scope that's covered by the DA, and that's mostly the capacity increase and some noise and odor control. So the existing facility used to have, so no development was closer than 1,000 feet. Now that we're bringing development closer, that existing facility needs to be covered, and we need some noise and odor control measures put in place on the existing facility. So because it's not new facilities, it cannot be covered by impact fees. So that's a piece that's separate. And then any of the operational improvements, some of the things that we're doing to clean up our site, those will be paid for out of our water and sewer, or our sewer funds from the enterprise side. So our current cost model is being split, with Harvard's going to take about 2/3 the share of the cost, and then the city will be picking up the final $15 million. So the 50 and a half, 46.2 million were impact fee funds. So they'll be split 31.2 by Harvard and 15 from the city. There will be a true up at the end of the project. So if it costs more or less, we will recalc and determine what percentage each one covered. And so the capacity of the facility will be split up based on that percentage. So to Councilmember Stipp's point, that provides some available capacity to the city to serve others outside of the Estrella development. This is another exhibit showing one of our legal descriptions. It's a little confusing, but just going through other deal points. So the reimbursement for this project, so as we collect impact fees, the city will be covered for their debt service first. So right now we estimate that to about 209 single-family permits. So once we've gotten those first developments have been issued, we'll make sure our debt service is covered, and then Harvard would start getting their reimbursement after that each year. Effluent, any effluent that is produced from outside of the Estrella North properties will be for this, in the city's control. So we will be able to have that resource at our disposal. We do have, we did give Harvard a first right of refusal if we didn't have a need for it or a place to put it, and Harvard wanted to purchase it, they do have first right of refusal for that. So as mentioned earlier, one of the issues was floodplain, and what we were trying to show here, and it's kind of hard to tell. So one of the site improvements, so with that flooding, that zone, if you remember that pink area in that other picture, our access road is actually not high and dry, and it kind of goes down through that flood zone. So one of our improvements is we're going to try to bring our access off of Willis. And so we also have an easement in this DA to cover that new access. Then we'll be purchasing the property needed for this expansion and reserving the right for the full footprint of a build-out of the facility. And then recording a new odor and noise easement that is only 350 feet, because the facility will have those controls in place, and so we can reduce that odor easement from 1,000 feet to 350. And that's all I have. That's the main deal points, and another recommendation for approving our resolution and the development agreement.
Okay, thank you. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? You want to come on up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, Andrew Yancey with Bergen Frank, Smalley, and Oberholzer. Proud to be here representing Harvard and Estrella North. I know we've been here for a while tonight. I will be incredibly brief. I really just wanted to say thank you to everyone. The work on this has been going on for a while. It went through the IIP process and then into getting this agreement. I'm glad Barb covered some of the technicalities. There was a lot of math that went way over my head while we've been going through this, but we're certainly, happy to be a part of Goodyear, happy to be a partner here. I think there's a lot of growth coming to Estrella, and as Councilmember Stipp and Gillis noted earlier, we think it's going to be a benefit for both Estrella and Goodyear as a whole. So thank you very much. We appreciate working with you and looking forward to continuing to build out Estrella.
I can say every time I take a bike ride up to Estrella, Lucero, just I'm amazed at how many new houses I see up there every time I pass it. I mean, you're going great guns up there, so even in an economy where the interest rates seem to be a little high, I'm sure you're buying some of that stuff down, but I'm just amazed at how fast those homes are going up and being sold. So appreciate the partnership, appreciate all that you do, I really do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say I think that's a testament to the work that Estrella does, but also a testament to the city of Goodyear and the desirability of moving here.
Okay, thank you. With that, let's see what we've got there. With the city clerk, please read resolution 2024-2412 by title only.
Adopt resolution number 2024-2412, approving the development agreement for Rainbow Valley Water Reclamation Facility, RVWRF, expansion, providing direction, authorization, and an effective date.
Thank you. With the city council, please enter a motion and a second to adopt the resolution 2024-2412. See a motion and a second. Open for council discussion. Nothing. Go ahead, open voting. Passes 7-0. Thank you all. Any council have any comments or commendations or anything they'd like to say? Yes.
I have a request of the manager. We are embarking on a crazy weather pattern of excessive heat, et cetera. And I know, I only know personally that the fire department and employees have a very specific rehabilitation, work rest cycle, et cetera. But I'm unsure if we have the same thing in the police department, what's going on in public works, what's going on with our streets folks, everything. I think it's incumbent that I'd like to know that, and I'd like to know that sooner rather than later. How are we handling our employees working in this?
Sure.
Yeah, in the oven. I think Councilmember Lorentano and I were commenting before the meeting for the first time in probably either one of our lives, and she's lived here a lot longer than I have. We are complaining about the weather, and I am very concerned about city employees that are that are out working. I know, obviously been advocating for the parks workers and the street workers that have been, and I know we've moved them out of the old Public Works facility off of Kelly de Pueblo or wherever they've been. I want to know what we're doing for everybody else. So if we can just get that in the manager's memo on Friday, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
That's all I had.
Go ahead.
I think it's something I brought up before, but I noticed that people are, at least on Saraville and Van Buren, they're coming out of the apartments and also the court homes through the turning lanes versus making the U-turn that they want to. So I don't know how to mitigate that or any traffic type things. And there's more traffic. They're putting another median in on Saraville as well. So while they're building another set of apartments right now. So just curious about the traffic patterns in that area and what it's going to look like at the end of all the construction there.
Okay.
And then, yeah, if you need a heat stress procedure, the nuclear power plant can help out. Use that.
Good. Anything else?
I do need to and want to thank Engineering, Fire, Police, and Parks and Recreation for one exceptional 4th of July event. Between the two sites, Goodyear Ballpark and the Goodyear Recreation Campus, we had 16,800 participants.
Whoa.
That's a 29% increase in participation over 2023. And I don't want to leave out Amazon for sponsoring the 15-minute fireworks show. We really appreciate their partnership and their work with us, and it was spectacular. So just thanks to everyone for making it happen.
Thanks to the fire department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Next meeting will be a special meeting on August 19th, 2024. Hope everybody has a nice break up until then. Be safe out there, and have a good break. Thank you. Meeting's over.